And we are poised for 101 glory here this afternoon. It's a BMW and a Porsche on the front row with two very keen Audis behind. It's the third row before we see anything other than a German mark, and it's a McLaren. And then we go to two more Germans in an Audi and a Mercedes there as well. But it is the Porsche of Liam Talbot and John Martin, the Hot Wheels American Series Car Care Products outfit out of Walkinshaw, that is on pole position. The Stephen Richards and Michael Harmon BMW, the car number 100 on the front row, and really pushing for glory, those guys here this weekend after such a strong run to getting on the podium at Tailem Bend. Seeing that BMW on the front row of the grid is a really, really good sign. The Audis on the second row, these cars right throughout this weekend, whether it be in the GT Championship or in the GT Trophy Racing, have been so well balanced, and we've just been alluding to that with Cam and Greg Rust walking down the pit apron there, that being balanced and poised here at the Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit, over and above being outright fast, just a straight line pace. That's important, but getting the balance right so that you can send the car through the corners at the highest possible velocity that you possibly can. Matt Koch, who travels all around with the GT series, has joined me in commentary. Matt, 101, again, we do it right throughout this afternoon. I guess a big highlight of the year for the GT guys.
Yeah, good afternoon, Daz. Good afternoon, everyone. This is one of the biggest races of the year for the Australian GT Championship. Round 2 of the Australian Endurance Championship as well. It's a double-header, this race, 101 laps. We've seen some fabulous racing over here. Over the years, we went green, lights to flag, 101 laps uninterrupted in 2016. Last year we had a rain shower. Someone turned the sprinklers on halfway through a lap, midway through the race, and within half a lap we needed an arc to get back to pit lane. It was monsoonal conditions which threw another cat amongst the pigeons. Perfect weather here today down at Phillip Island. As you say, 101 laps of journey. It's going to be an almighty test. 3 compulsory pit stops. We'll cover those off as this race gets going. Driver changes. Tyre wear is going to be a talking point, protecting those Pirelli P0 tyres. This track's so hard on tyres. It's he who has the best pace, the most consistent driver pairing, the best ability to manage all the variables that will get thrown at you left, right and centre. There's going to be traffic. We've got GT4 cars out there among this amazing field of GT3 machinery. Let's run through the grid then after the 2-part qualifying yesterday. Liam Talbot and John Martin ended up on pole in the 911 Porsche GT3 R. It's Steve Richards and Michael Armand off of second. Then Jeff Emery and a little bloke named Garth Tander in third place in the number 1 Audi R8 LMS. Alongside them, another Audi, Tony Bates and Daniel Gaunt in the KFC Audi.
Gee, I tell you what, we look just a bit further back down through the field there to pick up something other than a German mark, and we've got to go all the way to Jackson Evans and Fraser Ross there as well, so they'll be picking up out of 6th place. Peter Hackett in the number 63. He's had a busy day. He's had 200 of his best customers from the AMG business down here enjoying their time. We hope they continue to enjoy themselves in the hospitality suite. Luke Yulden and Yasser Shahin in the 777 there as well. And there we have the first of the Lamborghinis, Adrian Dietz and Cameron McConville in that fantastic liveried BMW 1M or M1 Pro Car design. Really, really strong livery. It stands out. I'm sure we'll get plenty of great shots of that right throughout the weekend. So the first of the Lambos back in 9th place. Then it's Walls, and this car is making its way out as well, out of 12th. And then Scotty Taylor is, out of 11th and 12th is Walls.
Yeah, a couple of penalties that we'll cover off as well that have affected the grid since qualifying. Out of 13 is Tony Quinn alongside the first of the marked cars, Adam Hargroves and Daniel Gillison.
Tony Quinn in the borrowed car now.
Yeah, I guess he's had to get a note from the new owner saying, yeah, you can run that this weekend, we guess. Just covering off those penalties, the car number 50, the Trent Harrison and David Crampton, picked up a 6th place penalty for a red flag infringement during practice. So too the number 10 Audi of Johnny Reid and Andrew Fawcett. They're down towards the back for a similar infringement. And the number 8, the championship leading car of Tony D'Alberto and Max Twigg, they picked up a 3-place penalty for passing under yellow flag. So they've dropped down and will start out of 10th place.
John Martin and Michael Armand making sure the field get a start straight away. They're not going to go around again. They've slowed the field right down, bunched them up, formed them up 2 by 2. Some stragglers just starting to join in, but the first 6 rows of the grid well set now. We'll go to a race start. The safety car from BMW Melbourne, and we thank them for that car for this season, is in the lane. So we are all set to go. Well done to Johnny Martin in the 911, the Hot Wheels Porsche, for getting the crew set. Michael Harmon has seen the message as well, and we have got a magnificent two-line field, just easing on the throttle now as they come down to the strike line. It's almost walking pace, isn't it, Matt, as they come down? And we are away, and the Porsche goes well. Have a look at the KFC car. It drives nicely out of there with Tony Bates. What a ripping start for the Audi. Drove straight around him, but the BMW has been gazumped there a little bit, pushed back to P4 as he heads into turn 1. Peter Hackett in the 63. He's pushing up pretty hard as well. But have a look at Fraser Ross in the McLaren, right up in behind the BMW.
What a start from John Martin there. Getting the pace nice and slow, using the traction in that Porsche to leap clear of the field. Fabulous start also from Michael. We've got contact further back. That is the number 6 Lamborghini Huracan, and it's borrowed Tony Quinn McLaren. Cam Dungan mentioned you don't say it's a borrowed car when you're about to go racing in it. Picked up damage at turn 2 already. They're a little bit further back. Hopefully they will rejoin. Some damage to the back end. It looks as though that
the McLaren is moving. The Lambo and the McLaren are moving.
Yeah, so that McLaren is limping. Looks front left. Out front though, John Martin has leapt clear. Fabulous start from that Porsche 911, the Hot Wheels car care product, in a different postcode at the moment. We're only half a lap into this 101 lap race. He leads from Jeff Emery and Tony Bates, the two Audis, second and third. Michael Harmon's dropped back to fourth off the start. He's dropped a couple of places. Then Fraser Ross, Luke Gulden's just picked up a spot ahead of Peter Hackett. Max Twig now up there into eighth. Ash Samadi in ninth. Rounding out the top 10 is Tony Walls. See if we can pick out what's happening with the two cars that were involved in that tangle at the start.
Well, the Lamborghini's underway. It's up around the back of the Haysha, but Tony Quinn is just bringing the game over car into pit lane. Ironically, the game over car coming back down into turn 4 as John Martin has eased 3.75 second lead on that first lap. And when I say eased, because he did it with just such a relaxed approach to this opening lap. And that is a fantastic start in any form of racing, let alone when you've got 101 laps to go around here. It just sets your mind for a winning pattern. Michael Harmon suffering a little bit off the line there. He's managed to keep the McLaren behind him as we just get bits of debris and carbon fibre, which will be that rear splitter off the back of Adrian Dietz's Lamborghini. As he comes down past us now, and there's tyre rubbing on that left rear wheel. So that's just ever so slight. They're going to have to come in and rectify that. That will certainly not be ideal. The right-hand side does cop all the punishment here, but you can't go for too long with carbon fibre rubbing on your Pirellis.
Now we know how hard this place is on tyres. John Martin, he's got two fresh sets of Pirelli P0s up his sleeve out front. We look a little bit further back at the number 10 Audi R8 LMS, the International Motorsport Run entry. Andrew Fawcett and Johnny Reid will share that car. It's come across from New Zealand, where they've been doing lots and lots of running. It's a brand new car, actually. That one of Andrew Fawcett's previously been running in Ferraris. So we see this battle pack now for second. Jeff Emery heads, Tony Bates, Michael Harmon, Fraser Ross, Luke Gulden, Peter Hackett's in this one as well. Let's go down to Greg Rust in pit lane.
Madam at Wall Racing with Cameron McConville. What's the word from Adrian so far?
He just said he got turned, so it looks like Scott Taylor was behind him, and tyres are cold, you know, at the start of a race. Adrian was probably being a little bit conservative, and it looks like he just tapped him on the way through, but then he got collected by one of the McLaren, so it's ripped the rear bar off. We think it's actually okay, but we've had one look at it, but I mean, it's the first lap of a 101 lap race, seriously, but anyway, that happens.
Bit of debate. We saw Paul Forgy and the boys standing by here in the lane, so you obviously contemplated bringing him in, but the goal, if you can, is to keep him pressing on, isn't it?
Yeah, if we come in, the race is done, and the car's been great. We've actually had good speed. Adrian did a ripper job in quali, so prefer to stay out there. I think if it's damaged the diffuser, you come in, but if it's just the rear bar off, we should be okay to keep going.
Cheers, Cam. Thank you.
All right, thanks, mate.
Yeah, it certainly is the rear bar. We're looking straight into the back of the gearbox on that Lamborghini as he comes down there, but I think Cam McConville's assessment is pretty clear there. The diffuser looks like it's intact. There was certainly a lot of carbon fibre that sprayed up in the air.
And we've seen the 777 car running off the circuit as well, dropped a bunch of spots. It's embroiled in that 7-way scrap for second place, currently headed by Jeff Emery. He's got a little bit of breathing space now over Tony Bates, who Michael Harmon is fussing over the back of. The BMW versus Audi, the Battle of Bavaria. The big BMW has a look up the inside. Tony Bates just leaves the door open, just trying to avoid any contact. Speaking of which, the game over McLaren has finally made it back into pit lane. He's a couple of laps down already. Out front, speaking of laps down, he's laps clear almost. John Martin's absolutely rocketing away from the front of this field. 7.5 seconds after 3 laps.
129 dead. No one else has been able to get anything into the higher 30s. So very fast. There's the Luke Youlden slide at turn 1. That's a nasty spot to go around. Thank goodness he went to the infield, if you like, there, collecting the Morris Finance sign. So brand new this weekend, the Morris Finance signs. One already consigned. We've had 2 pace signs consigned to the graveyard. And here is the McLaren in the lane. Tony Quinn, they're just feeling to make sure everything is mechanically okay. Guys giving the front wheel, just make sure that everything, joints, wheel bearings, etc. are still in good condition. Michael Harmon now right up the back of Tony Bates. And Tony Bates, interestingly enough, looking right in front of him, his old teammate from Tag Motorsport, Tony and Jeff. For many years they went racing in Commodore Cup and in the development series as well. So now both teaming up in Audis, being part of the Audi Sport Customer Racing program, and of course Jeff with the number 1 emblazoned on the side of his car, being the reigning champion.
So Michael Armand is really starting to give Tony Bates the hurry up message here. Fraser Ross is latching onto the back of the BMW as well, so it's a 3-way scrap for number 4. Tony Quinn rejoins the race. The team's happy with the McLaren down there. With any luck, hopefully there's not too much damage. Probably likely to be steering, you would think, will be a little bit, perhaps right hand down if it's taken a tweak.
Not what you want to do going into 101 laps.
No, you're certainly going to get more tyre wear around a track that's already so hard on tyres. And that's something that we're going to speak about as this race unfolds. I've got 4 sets of Pirelli P0 tyres for the race. Some drivers have used 3, others have used 2, others have used all 4. So some teams will have fresher rubber than others. Out front, we know for a fact that John Martin saved 2 brand new sets of tyres, and he's using those to full effect at the moment. 10.4 seconds already up the road. He's pulling out at more than 2.5 seconds a lap in this early stanza of the race. 5 laps in the books, 101 laps is the journey. Doing the maths, that's 96 laps still to run. Tony Bates now not feeling the need to go too defensive. Does just half cover the line from Michael Armand, who's doing
it's almost
the right
enticing
thing.
him to have a go, isn't he?
Just teasing, go on, I dare you. Send it up the inside there, son.
The problem is that I think Tony Bates, if he does that, Tony, you're going to find a Total McLaren streaming on through at the same time.
Yeah, it's a 2 for 1. You get shuffled wide, and then it'll be freight train stuff.
And here comes a couple of Mercs with Hackett and Twig as well in behind.
We had the Trulli train in Formula 1. Is this a Tony train? Or the Bates bus?
The Bates bus.
Jumping on the Bates bus.
Yeah, let's get on that. Have a look at that. Down there, here comes a couple of Mercs. Peter Hackett, defending endurance champion in the number 63. Of course, did it last year with Dominic and had a good run at it. Here's the first of our Morris Finance leaderboards for the 500Ks. John Martin, 10.5 seconds clear of the field. Jeff Emery, Tony Bates, Michael Armand, and it's down to the pit lane.
Now I've got Grant Denyer with me. Now, Grant, when we heard the news about the car, I did not want to have this conversation, but one good thing, at least it wasn't you at the wheel.
Yeah, not as much as I didn't want to have it with you. Yeah, not ideal, but these things happen when you got congestion on a racetrack on cold tyres, and Tony unfortunately couldn't avoid a car that had spun in front of him, and they made the car roll back into Tony, and it's sort of just punctured through the sidewall of the tyre and broken the rim, so it was a pretty slow old trip back, but we had 3 hours to try and make amends and keep ourselves in it. You never really know.
Well, hopefully we're speaking to you with this remarkable drive through the field.
Who doesn't love an underdog story? Come on, let's face it.
Thanks, Grant.
See you, mate.
So Grant Denyer won this race a couple of years ago, so knows how to do the 101. It was a big one. It finished in the dark that year when Grant Denyer won it, but certainly it is going to be the challenge now from down in 21st place. And the best lap time so far being completed by that car, 5 minutes and 49 seconds, which was that slow troll around to the pit lane. So Tony Quinn, let's hope that the sun shines on his afternoon and he can manage to recover it up here. There's Quinny there, just getting out of the way of the leaders of the field coming through. So the McLaren clearly not right at this point in time, and he's just making sure he can bring it back safely. So the crew will have the McLaren arriving back on their doorstep, I would suggest.
Yeah, Tony Quinn, also an experienced racer, knows full well that he's not in the fight that these guys are among, so get it right out of the way. He does come into pit lane as well as we look at the 911 Hot Wheels Car Care products just racing clear at the front of this race. 15.8 seconds now, 7 laps in the books. This is an extraordinary stint from John Martin. I can understand why they've started the former A1 GP racer. Lights ahead of everyone else. Jeff Emery in second place. He's about a second up the road from the Tony train. as one hack has messaged me and suggested, we've had the Bates bus, but the Tony train seems to be the crowd favourite.
We might put that all to one side at the moment as we just watch Jeff Emery, who has now got the BMW behind him. Michael Harmon has taken the challenge, and it looks like Fraser Ross will too. Tony Bates has opened up the door to anyone that wants to get through, and they're taking up on that challenge. Michael Harmon obviously got that through quite nicely, but now Fraser Ross is being enticed with a nice open gap into the corner. Where can the McLaren get through? Will it be under brakes down into MG? Certainly got the speed through here. As we continue back with the Morris Finance leaderboard, John Martin, 15.8 seconds over Jeff Emery in the Audi, Michael Harmon in the BMW, Tony Bates in the Audi there, some 17 seconds from the leader. Fraser Ross to Peter Hackett. Now this is the battle pack. Ross, Hackett, Twigg, Johnny Reid, well off the back of that group, but certainly this is where the battle is right now. This is for positions 4 and 5 on the road. And Tony Bates has been in the thick of it for the first 6 laps of this race. There's the back of 2 Mercs, 2 AMGs, thundering down the straight as they do those 6.3 litre V8s, charging underneath the Melbourne Australia Bridge.
They're never going to sneak up on you, are they?
No, they're not.
Never sneak up on
They're
you.
not stealth, that's for sure. That is for sure. And this magnificent BMW, absolute engineering masterpiece, that car. And as much as it's been a masterpiece, it's also been the engineering conundrum too for a number of years for the SRM crew.
Yeah.
They've certainly got it switched on now. It's just a matter of keeping it switched on.
Yeah, they've solved that Rubik's Cube, haven't they, as they see the leaders start to work their way through some of the GT4 track. You see in the top corner of the screen, so this was covered off in the pre-show as well, the coloured numbers that will tell you where the cars are on class when they're out on track. The cyan or the light blue number is the championship class, the yellow is GT4 class. That car there is currently running in 5th place. It's got Mark Griffith and Rio Nagara at the wheel of that one. The 55 currently has Rio Nagara, 2-time winning here yesterday in the Australian GT Trophy Series. As we watch Jeff Emery now fending off the likes of Michael Harmon, Tony Bates is buying into this one as well. Fraser Ross is still tucked up underneath the rear wing of that 24 Audi. We're seeing Peter Hackett join this one now. So maybe it's not the Bates bus. Maybe it's the. I know we've got to come up with something for Emery now, don't we?
The champion bus? I don't know.
A mode of transport starting with a G or an E. Let us know. Get on social media, get on Twitter or Facebook, and let us know. But Jeff Emery currently heading this battle for second place. So many cars involved here, some 5 or 6 cars. So it's Emery, Harmon, Bates, Ross.
Through the challenge deck.
The Jeff Jalopy.
Yeah, well, there we go. That's a G and a J. Serious motorsport on here, and we're trying to think up nicknames for people. Come on, Jeffo. Here comes Mickey, right behind you. Let's run with the Aussie slang.
Michael Harmon, such a fabulous job he's done since stepping into that BMW at the Bend, picking up a podium there with Steve Richards. That car's been so quick here throughout the weekend thus far. They start on the outside of the front row, got mugged a little bit at the start. That's why they're currently sitting in 3rd place. Michael Harmon at the wheel. Do have pit stops to come. The race is going to change many, many times over. But this battle, 18.7 seconds adrift of John Martin. In fact, it's now out to 18.4 seconds adrift. It's phenomenal, the job that John Martin's doing. Michael Harmon now up the inside of Emery. He's got the job done now. Emery's run wide. Is that going to open the door for Bates? No. The track turns back left. It gives Emery the high ground. So around to complete what will be their 10th lap.
Gee, that BMW is poised, isn't it? Here it is, Michael Harmon. He's bided his time to get through on the KFC car. He now goes through on the Valvoline Gemic Pem car of Jeff Emery. The number 1 on the side, championship winner from last year. It's a couple of spots back to Peter Hackett, who won the Endurance Championship. There it is right there, the Corplex car number 66. With some 200 of his best friends in the corporate suite cheering him on, banging on the window, saying, "Come on, Pete." Let's see that big Mercedes AMG up the front. He's trying to drag Max Twigg with him. Travelling in packs, the 2 front-engine GT cars.
So we saw Michael Harmon step off the Emery Express. Tony Bates now tucked up underneath behind his stablemate. Fraser Ross has now found a way through on Tony Bates. A little bit of side-to-side contact. Bates will now hold the inside line as they tip it into Siberia. holds the apex, doesn't allow Fraser Ross up the inside. The McLaren still stuck in there in 5th place.
I tell you what, Fraser Ross wants to send it through on Tony Bates now because he's going to get gobbled up by a couple of Mercs that have now got their tyres right up to operating temperature. Front engine GT cars versus mid-mounted engines of the McLaren and the Audis. Front engine in the BMW, or if you had a good look at the BMW, it's almost a mid-engine car as well.
Very much, isn't it?
Got that engine placed. The fact that the first muffler is mounted up on the firewall, and it comes back to the firewall as well.
Yeah. So, John Martin well clear of this battle for second place. Even though Michael Harmon's got through, he hasn't escaped up the road too far. There is the Strom and Jorgensen BMW M4 GT4, the Mark GT car. They're just putting a lap on as they flash down the front straight here for the 11th time. He's out front, absolutely serene. He's in his own little world at the moment, isn't he, John Martin? He's just found a heap of grip that no one else is getting anywhere near. He's 22 seconds, nearly 23 seconds a lap.
Let's just note that on lap 10 it was 22.7 seconds. Let's see if Michael Harmon now can match those times and start to bring that back. Well, on the first time across the line, no. It's now eased out to 23.82 seconds, so just under another second onto that lead for John Martin. So pushing very, very hard out in front. I hope not using too much of the car. Having said that, he's able to put the car where he wants. There's no challenges. He's just easing the car around, albeit pushing it very hard on that good set of Pirellis.
Fraser Ross has got to run out of Siberia. He's going to have to go the long way around. It's
a brave move.
This is a brave bit of track. Geez, that's close now. Look at Hackett buying into this. Around the outside across Lukey Heights. If you can hang it around out there, and we've seen it done, you've then got the inside line down into MG. Hackett stays the course, holds that inside line. Fraser Ross has to cede that spot.
That's not what Fraser Ross wanted either.
Attack immediately became defence there as he got mugged for 5th spot. And that's the difficulty when you're racing in these big chains of cars. If you put your car in the wrong spot, it gives the guy behind an opportunity. Peter Hackett didn't need a second invitation. Moves up into 6th place, the reigning 2017 Australian Endurance Champion. Here is a replay of the move. So Fraser Ross has tried to go the long way around at Hayshed. That slowed him up as he had to back out. The road beginning to escape away from him, and that's allowed Peter Hackett just dive around the outside. Good, brave move. Good driving from both of them, because that could have been a nasty one should they have touched.
Peter Hackett read that play very well. Coming out of Siberia, he said, wow, these guys are setting themselves up here. I better move up and just take advantage of whatever might come my way. And by the time he got round to Honda under brakes, the big Merc eased on through on Fraser Ross. Certainly wasn't what Fraser Ross was expecting to happen there. Fraser was sort of being taunted to take that spot off Jeff Emery, as we've got these guys going side by side again.
This time he's got him.
To Greg Rust in pit lane.
Darren, Matt, just been speaking with Ken Collier here in the pit lane. He tells us a couple of start infringements that they've noticed. So at the stops, expect plus 10 seconds for car 50 and a further 5 seconds to the pit stop time for car 24.
Okay, so that's Tony Bates. That's the car we're looking at in contention here in 24. And number 50 is the GT4 of Harrison there. So they'll have to contend with that 10-second penalty on their compulsory pit stop. So that will be played out throughout the race as it comes. So no extra visits to pit lane, which is good. Just a straight up 10 seconds. So Tony Bates will be getting fed that information, as we see Fraser Ross has now gone through on Batesy. He's relinquished the charge, but he did have such a really good run in that early stanza. In fact, he was the only one that tried to go with John Martin to turn 2, but it was at about that point that John Martin looked in the mirror and there was nothing left to challenge him. 26 and a half seconds lead now.
Such was his pace on the first lap. I wonder if he thought, because everyone else thought that we were just on the warm-up lap maybe.
Yeah, or are we under safety car somewhere or something like that.
It's absolutely extraordinary out front. This is incredible.
If this was a 12-lap race, he would have won it by 26 seconds.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's absolutely phenomenal. So just covering off, putting a bow on what Greg Ross has just told us from the start line infringements. That'll be pulling out of line. All the cars are going to go over their grid box until the start-finish line. Then they're allowed to fan out and go motor racing. If you pull out of line ahead of the start line, you tend to pick up a penalty. So Tony Bates and number 50 of Trent Harrison have done that. As we look into the Walkinshaw GT3 garage, the gloves are going on for Liam Talbot. He's about to step into the car that's dominating the first part of this race.
Wow, do you get out this early? Are they going to put him in with only 13 laps completed in the race? Just in the background there, Paul Ziddy long time working down at Ball and Race Developments, and now Formula Ford racer, and a long-time driver as well, and has been a mentor to many that have come through the ranks. In fact, John Martin, the guy out in front, spent a lot of time with Paul Ziddy down there at the Braeside workshops of Ball and Race Developments.
So there's two ways to really carve this strategic turkey up as we go racing. You've got to take 3 compulsory pit stops. The pit window opens at lap 16. That's not too far away now, hence we're seeing Liam Talbot get ready. It closes at lap 85, so there's a huge chunk of the race where you can serve those 3 stops. A lot of what they'll do is come in once, do a driver change. They'll then run the second driver for the minimum laps, which is 46 laps the driver has to do. They'll run those 46 through the middle part of the race and perhaps take a second stop during that time. Then pit again, put Johnny Hotshoe back in, or in case of the 911, Johnny Martin, who is Johnny Hotshoe this today, and he'll then run to the flag. That's the standard way as we see Peter Hackett put a move on Jeff Emery out at Honda. Kept it around the outside there is Emery. Get the boot in, held onto that spot, just fended it off. Great little battle here for third place. Michael Harmon has just cleared off a little bit from this trio, and Tony Bates has just dropped away. It's the other way to play this strategic card is to run your first driver for either 46 or 55 laps, take a stop at that point, and you have to get it right, and that's, there's all sorts of variables that can impact that. Make that stop and then throw the other driver in. So
just looking over the shoulder there of the Wall Racing team drew my attention to car 6. Adrian Dietz has made his way up into 14th place. So clearly that Lamborghini is, albeit sans rear bumper, is running very, very strong. Cameron Conville had a bit of a smile on his face. I bet he didn't at the end of the first lap as we see the Tony Quinn McLaren going into the garage there, the game over car. And let's hope that the sign down the side of the car isn't exactly what's happening. But that's a really good run there for the Lambo, getting up to 14th place after being put down in the back of the field after a spin at turn 2 on the opening lap.
Adrian Dietz is really comfortable in that Lamborghini. He's driving really well since stepping out of the Ferrari a year or 2 back now and into the Lamborghini. He's been driving with Cameron McConville for a number of years. We see the second place GT4 car. That's the 48 of Glenwood. Have a lap put on it. Just catches Fraser Ross out a little bit as they go through Stoner Curve. So Jeff Emery just still holding the advantage over Hackett. It looks as though the Mercedes does have the pace over the Audi at this point in the race, but no way through. We should see compulsory pit stop windows open sometime now. I wouldn't be too surprised if we see cars that are being held up come into the pits just to pull them out of traffic, hopefully rejoin in a clear bit of track.
So the insert picture there is the Tony Quinn McLaren wheels off. Jason Dunstan working away there at the wheel, and it's down to Greg Rust in pit lane.
And so Tony Quinn has remained at the wheel of the car, guys. I'm with Grant Denyer once again. Attention, obviously, on that left front. What's the latest?
He's still not happy. I think we've got something sort of bent in the front end. They had trouble locating it when we brought the car in the first time round, but Tony's a little unhappy with the steering position and doesn't feel like it's tracking right, so we're just trying to locate what that problem is now, crank a little, trying to fix the toe by the looks of things, and see if we can get out there and circulate. So disappointing, that's what happens. But
will you rethink the way you guys were planning to tackle this race? Will you perhaps get in sooner or something like that?
Yeah, well, we'll obviously grab as much fuel as we can now and try to leapfrog as best we can. But we're so far down now that we've lost too many laps. 8 or 9 laps down, so it's kind of game over for us. Funnily enough, that's the sponsor. That's a bit weird, isn't it?
It is. Hard luck, mate. Thank you.
Thank you, mate.
So the reason the guys will have pulled that car into the garage rather than pit lane is that in pit lane you can only have 2 guys work on it. In the garage you can have as many as you've got in the crew. So it just affords them a few more hands on the task. Tough old day for Tony Quinn and Grant Denyer, man who won this race a couple of years ago with Nathan Walker. Grant Denyer, the 2016 Australian endurance champion.
And Quinny did in the Aston with that guy, Garth Tander, going back a number of years ago as well. He took the victory in the Aston. A couple of blokes looking like they're already set to go. And Daniel Gaunt just having a giggle about things in the background there. There he is. And the guys from Pirelli just lurking in the background there. Chris Montgomery as well. They'll be certainly lending their engineering expertise to all the teams. Just happen to be in the Audi Sport customer racing shed there at the moment. Travelling safely in numbers to the Audis in GT racing.
Yeah, they hunt in packs.
They certainly do. They've been very, very fast here, and as Garth Tander said, the car's feeling good. The results for Audis at Phillip Island stand on their own, albeit at the moment that we've got a Porsche and a BMW out in front, and the Porsche is now out to 36 seconds lead over Michael Harmon in the BMW. And it's back to Jeff Emery just in the rear vision mirror of that car. So John Martin, 36.94 seconds on the Morris Finance leaderboard. And in fifth place now is Fraser Ross, then it is Tony Bates, who's just dropped back a few spots. Johnny Reid is the big pusher here, and Luke Youlden responding to an earlier off, and now getting back underway. The Bathurst 1000 winner in car number 777.
So John Martin, 36.5 seconds
Wow.
up the road. It's an extraordinary opening stint to this race. Pit window is now open, so it's going to be interesting to see what teams now decide to do. As we see Scott Taylor Motorsport, or is that a Star Trooper, or are they in Star Wars? It's ferocious in those.
Yeah. Like the Monaco trackside marshals.
A bit, don't they?
Those helmets.
Yep.
Well done to Dan. Well done to Will Power early on this week.
John Martin is now in pit lane, so he's taken that early opportunity.
36.8 seconds was the lead.
Wow. 36 seconds
start.
in 16 laps. Let's call it 2 and a bit seconds a lap. My mass isn't
So he stopped in the lane, and the second car is only just passing the pit entry road.
Yeah, phenomenal performance from John Martin. He's going to hand that car over to Liam Talbot. We saw him getting ready out on track, though. We are watching Jeff Emery versus Peter Hackett versus Fraser Ross. We've been enjoying this one for a couple of laps now. Absolutely fantastic battle down in second or third place, rather. So we go down to Cam Vanderduggen in the lane.
I was going to give you some information that John Martin told us earlier in the coverage for those that are joining us later in the day. Yesterday, he did his qualifying time in only one run. He only required one set of tyres. He set his time on lap 3. So John Martin said they had plenty of green rubber up their sleeve for today's race.
So just waiting for Max Twig to pit here in car 8, and what the team are telling me here is they wanted to get him out of the traffic. So Tony D'Alberto is here. He's not jumping in the car, but they've done this, boys, just to sort of give him some clear air.
Thanks very much, guys. Sometimes here at Phillip Island, a green set of tyres can be your bogey as well. Getting a heat cycle into the tyres, certainly maybe not so much during these cooler months, but in the warmer months, it can be a real bogey to put a brand new set of tyres on a car. But the sun has disappeared, so the surface temperature isn't going to be in the track. But I always have a little bit of a shudder. Just a nice one cycle through the tyre would give you just a bit of insurance going out there, although these guys all run the ovens now. The tyres are heated up to near on operating temperature. We had the experts from Pirelli earlier on in our coverage. If you have only just joined us, they were telling us that, getting above 80 degrees, they start to set alarm bells off and start to talk to the teams about their setup. But if you have just joined us, welcome to round 3 of the Shannons Nationals, presented by Morris Finance. This is our main race for the weekend, 500 kilometres with the Australian GT and Endurance Championship race. We've got 83 laps to go, so it's only a young race still, 18 laps completed. And it is Michael Harmon in the BMW for the first time leading this race, as the lead was handed over to him from John Martin, who had an amazing 36-second lead after only 17 laps. So let's see how the Porsche fights on once it leaves the pit lane.
So Michael Harmon is currently our effective race leader, yet to take his first dose of medicine. Heading up from Jeff Emery. Just dropped back into the clutches of Emery in the last couple of laps, so he's lost the second or so advantage he's had. Emery has the attentions of Fraser Ross, that Audi and McLaren locked together for a little while now. It does make a bit of sense to just pull your car, if you're tucked up behind someone else, to pull your car into the pit, serve that first compulsory pit stop. You have to take it at some point. You may as well pull your car out, see if you can pick up some clear track on the exit. Just in the GT4 battle, watching Trent Harrison currently heads that one. Good job, he started a little bit further down the grid, having picked up a mistake. Let's go down to Greg Rust in pit lane.
Just keeping an eye on Pirelli's manager, Asia Pacific for Motorsport, Simon Poole, a guy who's been around the game for a long time, both circuit racing and rally. He's had a good look at the tyres, guys, on these early stoppers. He says no problems at all at the moment from what he's witnessing, and we know how brutal Phillip Island can be when it comes to rubber.
Thanks for that, Greg. Interesting, we're watching the Peter Hackett pit stop. Was his front right wheel inside the white line on the concrete part of the apron? That's where the cars need to stop. Be interesting to see if
I'll check that.
that's
I'll follow that up.
okay. I know the clock, of course, is pretty hot on that sort of stuff. Be interesting to see what comes out of that, if anything.
So Peter Hackett stayed at the wheel of the Corplex AMG Mercedes. Michael Harmon now in the lane after leading the last 3 laps since the Porsche came in, and Liam Talbot is currently in 10th place. So we'll watch to see where the Porsche is physically on track as to where the Michael Harmon, Stephen Richards' car pops out. The BMW is in the lane, and as you've just heard from Greg Rust, no one has actually gone for a new set of P0s yet. They're all hanging on the inbound set, so they've done a fuel stop mostly, and there was a couple of driver changes there. Of course, Liam Talbot jumped into the Porsche after John Martin had just driven 17 sprint lap races in the first part of this race, as Jeff Emery is now pit bound. Greg Rust will be following all the stories in the lane.
Matt, just on your question in relation to whether Peter Hackett had stopped within the prescribed area in the pit lane, the initial comments I'm being told by some of the GT officials here in the lane is that they don't believe there is an issue right now with it.
Thanks for that, Greg.
Nice to know. Thanks, Greg Rust, down there keeping his finger on the pulse, as he's been doing for many, many years across the Australian motorsport landscape.
Yeah, the reason I asked that question is that it's such a narrow pit lane here. We've seen in the past, particularly when the weather changes rapidly, that you can get some serious congestion down there. So having mechanics working in what's effectively the transit lane, it's only about 1.5 meters or 2 meters wide, puts those guys at risk. So it's something that the circuit officials are typically pretty hot on. Tony Bates is also in the lane, as we see Michael Harmon in back of shot trundling out. So few stops starting to happen about half the field. Let's go down to Cam with more.
Yeah, fuel stops for both Emery and Bates in the Audi Customer Sport Racing team. I can also take a little note of interest is Adam DeBore, car controller on car 24.
A little bit different to the supercar that he normally manages. Adam DeBore, no stranger down there in Audi Sport Customer Racing Australia.
In this race last year, we were talking about having 1 or 2 millimetres of your P0 over the line. We had Audis that were on jacks outside that line, so we'll keep an eye on that situation as that unfolds here this weekend as well. Back down to Cam.
Yeah, the update on the 24 guys, after putting the fuel in, they put it up on axle stands, changed tyres for the Tony Bates, but no driver change as Dan Gort looks on.
Must be looking longingly at that car, thinking just a little bit longer. Just a little bit longer. What this basically means, though, what we can take out of this is that the likes of Tony Bates will now probably run to lap 46. So they've served in Tony Bates' case. He's pitted on lap 19 or after 19 laps. So he'll probably stretch that next one out for 25 or 26 laps to get to lap 46. That's when they'll take their second stop, put Dan Gaunt in, and he'll then run to the end of this race. So they're choosing option B of the buffet that is strategy when it comes to cutting this strategic turkey. And Dan Gaunt will run
Look
the
at the number 11 that Jeff Emery left there. An old Commodore Cup racer from a long time ago. If you're going to leave pit lane, leave some number 11s down that concrete apron. The last car in the lane there, in fact, so did Tony Bates. They're both peeled out in their Audi Sport Customer Racing cars from the KFC shed and the Valvoline Jamic Pem teams.
It's a pretty dark one, but he's done a good job down there.
He has.
I'd give him 11 out of 10 for that one.
Yeah, that'll get the resin off the outside of the tyre, won't it?
The release agent is no more. Jeff Emery back out on track, currently in 11th place. It's still yet to shake out. There's only about half the field has served their first compulsory pit stop. So our race leader for the moment is Fraser Ross. He'll be thankful for the clean air, you would think. Spent much of the first part of this race tucked up behind someone else. Total Optico McLaren is the effective race leader. We're looking at the number 1 Valvoline Audi R8 LMS, Jeff Emery, and Garth Tander. Garth Tander also still in the garage down there in the Audi Sport Customer Racing pit. So he'll jump in later on. Yeah,
Glenn Wood and the crossbow there as well. KTM crossbow running in GT4 trim. Of course, it's Trent Harrison just leading the way in that class at the moment. In fact, just dropping back too as they Max Twigg and Jeff Emery go through on that car. The number 48, Mr. Wood. And here is our would-be race leader, Liam Talbot in the Porsche, as Greg Rusty is in the lane again.
I'm at the game over pit with both Grant Denyer and Tony Quinn. The shot you can see at the moment, look how brutal the hit has been for the McLaren, and sadly, Tony, you've withdrawn from this race.
Yeah, it was just not right. The car's just lurching and stuff at high speed, and I just not brave enough. I'm sorry.
What's your take on what happened at the very beginning and how you feel about that?
No, I feel it's irrelevant. No, Dietz on cold tyres, just his back came round, spun. Scotty Taylor avoided it, and then he come back onto the track, if you like, and collected me.
Hard luck.
That's sold.
Yeah. The car's sold. Right. We had this discussion this morning, didn't we?
Anyway, it's still sold. No, but it's just not. There's someone. I think the broken steering rack and bits and pieces. So at Phillip Island, you really don't want to be doing 100 laps for that.
Your eyes were like saucers when you saw the damage to that rim before.
Yeah, man, I can't believe there's a bit of carbon fibre. Clearly it's metal of some sort. It's punctured straight through the wall of the tyre, and to come through the rim like that is pretty extraordinary. So obviously there's had a flow-on effect that's gone through the steering rack and the lower control arm. So there's a few components in there that are broken, and you don't want to be turning through the final turn flat out and then have that go on you. Otherwise you'd be in the third row of the crowd. So I think we'll park it.
Yeah, absolutely. Quickly, when's the next race for you?
This is just a bit of a one-off for me, so it's great to be back in the series. Obviously, having won this race 2 years ago, it's nice to be here, so I was hoping for a few laps, but wasn't to be today.
Hope you get the gold and the Logies. Well done, mate.
Thanks, buddy.
Fraser Ross and Luke Youlden now in the pits. Both were in the lead momentarily, as is Ash Samadhi now. The race leader is the number 11 car, which is Walls and Luff. Walls currently at the wheel. The McLaren, and then Scotty Taylor in the 222, and then it will be Liam Talbot, the next car on track, which will be our next race leader.
Bit of work going on the left front and on that car. Yasser Sheen stepping out and Luke Youlden stepping in. So not many teams have taken this opportunity to run a driver change. Only Liam Talbot's climbed into the 911 now. Yasser Sheen into the 777. And also it was just Johnny Reid into the out of the number 10 Audi. So only 3 cars at this point have opted for driver changes. So they're running driver A to start with, then they'll run driver B through the middle part of this race, and they'll do another driver change a little bit later on. In back of shot was Fraser Ross. He stayed in that car as well. Hand that over to Jackson Evans a little bit later on. It's out front. Well, not out front. The car that was out front currently sitting in third on track, although the effective race leader is Liam Talbot, the first of the cars on track to have made his stop in the Hot Wheels Car Care Products Porsche. Sensational stint in the first part of this race. Came McConville and Adrian Dietz in the lane in the Lamborghini as well. So it's all starting to kick off here in terms of the pit stops after 25 laps.
This will be a frantic stop there for Adrian Dietz. That crew will have been wanting to get their hands on that car for 23 laps now to check out what damage was occurred. It did obviously have a rubbing tyre. We saw that with smoke coming across, as that some of the undulations in the main straight here at the Grand Prix circuit started to touch there, so they'll be well aware of that. They've got the opportunity now to rectify those concerns and to send Cam McConville out, vastly experienced race driver, and we'll see what Cam can do. He was very quick in the warm-up this morning, so we'll see how Cam McConville can turn it on as we go back down to the lane.
We saw Luke Youlden getting out of the car before. Reigning Bathurst 1000 champion Luke Youlden. Track conditions look pretty good out there.
Yeah, it's okay. Had a big moment at 1, didn't I? So again, just miscalculated the aero wash. It was so bad behind other cars. So I don't know if every other car's affected the same way as our car, but our car drops 2 or 3 seconds a lap behind another car. So yeah, it's not the best start, but anyway, we're soldiering on. See how Yasser goes in this one.
And Yasser, any tweaks you required on the car? I mean, there was a bit of a change of tyres on there as well. Any other changes required for Yasser?
There's a fair bit required, but none we can do, really. It's not a Merc track this week, obviously. Qualifying 7th to 10th. Bit of a turnaround from tail and bend, unfortunately. So the Mercs are suffering with a lot of understeer around here. So we can't seem to dial it out. We've tried our best. So what it is what it's got. So I hope Yasser can deal with it. And he's got good tyres, so we'll see. Hopefully he gets in a bit of a rhythm, and obviously he's out there with a lot of the fast guys. So hopefully they can latch onto one and learn a couple of things.
Thanks, Luke.
No worries, cheers.
They started well with a great qualifying performance in the Hot Wheels Porsche, but John Martin, that was a great first stint as well. You guys are in good shape so far.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was sort of a surprise to see where we were really after qualifying yesterday, because generally the car's a lot better race car than quali car, so we knew come today would be half right, but to have that sort of advantage after even the first couple of laps, I was quite surprised. But it's a good feeling, and then at least then I could just run our own race and try to manage a few things. Obviously the tyre deck here is quite high, so I still had to manage that even though it's quite a short stint. But so yeah, it'll be interesting at the end of the race what it's going to be like.
Give us a sense of the way you guys might attack the rest of it. Obviously there's a lot to play out here and safety cars and the like, but your plan?
So yeah, Liam's probably going to do the majority of the middle of the race now, and then I'll get back in and run to home. So just a sort of a short stint to get me in, get the first pit stop window out of the way. So hopefully there's no safety cars in that window, so now if one does come out and people have to stop, at least we don't get penalised for that. So Liam will run the middle of the race, and then I'll jump back in and run to home as soon as we can.
Hot Wheels indeed. Good pedaling by you, mate. Well done.
No worries, thanks.
Plenty coming out of the pit lane, as it always is in this type of endurance racing, 500k. Grueling around here in any sort of car. These GT cars that are tuned to within a thousandth of an inch to run so well. And these two drivers now back in the lead of the race in car number 911, the Hot Wheels Car Care Products Porsche from Walkinshaw GT3, have done a tremendous job. It's been pretty much faultless now. And when we start to talk like this, Matt, it's you're sort of, in one hand you're going, I don't want to sing the praises of it just yet because I don't want it all fall apart for them, but they're certainly doing a fantastic job. And McLaren just peeling out of pit lane. That'll be Warren Luff, I would suggest, at the wheel now. Tony Walls has been at the wheel.
They didn't do a driver change in that one. I watched that one closely, so should still be Tony Walls at the wheel of the number 11 as we watch Jeff Emery, who's dropped a couple of spots in the pit stop sequence. How's this though? Liam Talbot, after one compulsory pit stop, holds a 17.8 second advantage over Duvish and Paddy. So that was the stint that John Martin did in the first part of this race. They now hold a 17.3 second advantage after the first round of stop. That's absolutely phenomenal. So you can see the rebar there of the Lamborghini on the exit of the Southern Loop. Tony Walls still in that car. We've had that confirmed from the lane as well. So Walls in the 12th place. Number 11 Objective Racing McLaren. You can see that from the little LED display in the corner. Let's go down to Cam in the lane.
Well, I've got the co-driver of the driver you're just talking about with Tony Walls, Warren Luff. You're not even in your gear yet, looking nice and relaxed.
Yeah, look, I'm about to go get changed now. Tony's doing a great job out there. Probably about lap 47, 48 I'll be getting in the car. So, I'll go get ready shortly.
These conditions are changing a little bit at the moment. A bit of cloud cover and it feels like ambience dropped. Is that going to change the car much?
Oh, look, it actually probably helps us with the McLaren being turbocharged. But, look, I don't think there's any bad weather coming. Although I wouldn't mind a bit of rain. But, I think it'll be fine.
Thanks, Luffy. Good luck.
Cheers.
Warren Luff, one of the smiling faces in pit lane, whether he's working with McElroy as a driver coach or he's actually about to jump behind the steering wheel and do a stint out there. Matt, interesting, you're just sort of pointing to some strategies that would play out, getting maximum driver laps out of the way and plugging in the Johnny Hot Shoe, as you referred to, to bring it to the end.
Yeah, not bad, Warren Luff, as a Johnny Hot Shoe, is he? As we watch a replay, this is the 24 of Tony Bates, just looking to put a move on the 13 of, that's a little bit closer than you like. Darren Jorgensen at the wheel of the Mark GT number 13 BMW M4. Perhaps didn't expect the Audi to dive up the inside there. Was looking left when Tony Bates went right. They zigged instead of zagged.
May have had his eye on this BMW that he's charging again. Michael Harmon still at the wheel of the number 100. Had a poor start, went back to fourth, and did eventually make his way back up into the lead of the race before the pit stop. Albeit as John Martin was in the pits.
And this sequence has hurt them as well. They've dropped down from running in P2 when the sequence started, now in 9th place. So it'll be interesting to see what they can do in the next couple of stops. 2 more stops for every car out there. There's a couple out there that still get to serve a stop.
And poor old Mike has got to look at the back of that KFC car again for a couple of laps. He did that for about the first 10 laps of the race, sizing him up back there again.
So we look at David Crampton in the about to step into the KTM Crossbow, the GT4 class. Fantastic class of racing. We do have sensational battles back there. Great to see a few of those A few more of those GT4 cars out on track as well as we look at a couple of Mercedes-AMG GT3s. It's the Peter Hackett car having a look underneath as we look at some highlights of the start. Fantastic start from John Martin. Almost walking pace, you said, Daz. John Martin really using the traction of that Porsche. They get off the line so well, using the advantages at his disposal. And geez, didn't he use them in the first part of this race? Almost walking pace, and they just leapt up
even
and
just seeing
ran.
him on the brakes there, the brake lights come in, trying to maintain that speed, using all the torque of that Porsche engine to his advantage as the BMW sat right alongside. And unfortunately, it just gazumped Michael Harmon as he tried to wind up that car.
And a couple of driving infringements came out of that start. The Ginetta towards the back picked up a penalty. Sorry, the number 50 car picked up a penalty. That's Trent Harrison.
That was Tony
and
Bates.
then Tony Bates also picked up a penalty for pulling out of line too quickly. You can see the jump that John Martin got at the start, and he only extended that as his opening lap went on. He had something like a 2.3 second advantage. That's the spin from Adrian Dietz a little bit further back. He's then rolled backwards into Tony Quinn, who's been trying to take evasive action. The Lamborghini continued. The McLaren has been retired from the race. Game over for the game over. McLaren then had this fabulous dice for second place. It was a 7-car battle for a time there. Some great racing up and down the order. Out front, John Martin cleared out, leaving this lot to squabble over the minor placings.
There's Luke Youlden's spin down at turn 2, taking out one of the Morris Finance signs and just making his way back around. He's really down on himself out of that. We had that interview in the pits as Yasser Shahin has found his way into pit lane in the number 777, just sort of spinning there with Luke Youlden on board, and this was the retiring Tony Quinn. And about lap 4 or something after they changed the wheel, brought it back in, and there's still issues with that car.
Steering rack dramas in that car, so it won't take any further part. Grant Tenure, what does he have to do to get a lap in a GT3 car of late? So we finally saw the number 100 BMW get the move on the number 1 Audi. Michael Harmon then cleared off a little bit up the road, fell back into the clutch of these guys. Fraser Ross and Tony Bates were door to door, elbow to elbow for a time. Such a good battle between the McLaren and the Audi. The KFC entry getting the upper hand on this instance. Fraser Ross lost out a little bit more not long after, trying to go the long way round at Hayshed. Allowed Peter Hackett half a sniff of a look and absolutely maximised that choice. Goes around the outside at Lukey Heights, up the inside into MG, takes that place. Peter Hackett currently running in 4th place, so he's moved forward well in the opening stanza of this race, then puts a move, or tries to put a move on Jeff Emery, but the Valvoline car able to hang it around the outside. This is a battle over 3rd place in the opening stages of this race. Really entertaining stuff as we get going. The quarter of the way through, pit stops started to happen. A couple of driver changes up and down the order. So we see Jeremy Gray and Andrew Minicki, Aston Martin Vantage GT4, 3rd in class. Fraser Ross puts a move on that one as further back. Peter Hackett puts a move on this car, the Mark BMW, which was a little misunderstanding with Tony Bates down there at MG. So that's the way we run, a little bit under a third of the way into this race. Liam Talbot from Derbyshire Padiachi. Padiachi is closing on Talbot out front. Then Fraser Ross in 3rd, Peter Hackett in P4, Jeff Emery in 5th, Max Twigg in 6th, Michael Harmon still behind the wheel of the BMW M6 in 7th, and Tony Bates in 8th. Andrew Fawcett is in 9th, and Scott Taylor rounds out the top 10.
Tony Walls to Ash Samadi in the Audi R8 there as well. Adam Hargraves in the Mark Mazda V8. Adrian Dietz in the first of our Lamborghinis, and it's Andrew Badecki in the Aston Martin Vantage. Darren Jorgensen, BMW M4. Yasser Shahin just been in the lane and back out. Now David Crampton, Vince Tesorio and Rio Nagaro rounding out the top 20 as Greg Rust is back in the lane.
Just sorry guys, I'm just checking with Ken Collier here in the lane at the moment, just in relation to the pit stop for Yasser Shahin and whether it was within the bounds, the prescribed area for the stop. Now they brought Yasser in unscheduled. I was just talking to Rachel Eggleston. He was reporting that there was a problem of some kind with the right rear. I'm not sure whether it's a vibration or an issue. As a precaution, they have changed that right rear tyre and sent him back out again. But that was not planned while you guys were doing those replays there.
Yeah, good pick up, Greg. That was only a 5-lap stint, so certainly not scheduled. Try and spread it out a little bit more evenly than that. So I wonder if that might be cause or effect of the Luke Youlden spin at turn 1 a little bit earlier. maybe a flat-spotted tyre maybe if they didn't change tyres. I don't remember catching that in that stop.
Just looking at the back of the Hackett car there, now focusing in on Jeff Emery and Max Twigg, two guys from the southeast of Melbourne. And now they're doing it battles well southeast of Melbourne down here at Phillip Island. And Max Twigg bobbling over the back of the ripple strip there and just getting a whole lot of break there. Jeff Emery taking the wide and evasive line. It was never going to happen, Max. That she probably should have waited for a different opportunity. He's just lost a little bit of momentum there. There comes Michael Harmon as well, now out of position number 7 in the number 100.
It's good pace from Michael Harmon. He's gone personal best in the first split on this lap as he flashes across the line to set his personal best lap of the race thus far. So he's just easing up towards the back of Max Twigg and Jeff Emery. That battle for 5th place, the Audi being chased by the Mercedes. The number 8 entry is currently the Australian Endurance Championship leader. As we take a peek inside the Audi Sport Customer Racing Australia garage with Mission Control down there. Garth Tander watching some GT, about to get into a GT. I'll stop with that. I've done that. I've done the GT.
Maybe in the last
times.
hour. Yeah. You can use that one more time. Michael Harmon now, BMW, very, very flat. It's been taking great conditions right throughout this weekend, and there it is. That's the radar. There's a little patch just south of here, little green dot just south of Phillip Island out over Bass Strait, but generally not the direction the weather comes from. Certainly not greying our sky here trackside. It is overcast now, but certainly not something you'd expect to get any precipitation out of.
Yeah, it's just going to take the edge off. You don't have the sun baking down, so the ambience dropped a little bit. It's probably going to help the turbo cars because the cooler air is more dense. It creates a bigger bang for the turbo cars, gives them a little bit more power.
It's a new look, Dan.
See, Adam Hargraves is the latest to take a stop in the Mark car. So I've just about had everyone in the lane. The Mark Cars Australia crew about to set to work on that car. No driver change this time through. I think his first stop on lap 30. So it looks like they're going to carve the race up more or less into thirds. They won't quite be able to do that with driver time. So I would suggest that their next lap is going to be probably lap 55 or thereabouts. Let's go down to Greg.
Matt, as you know, this is a good little story, the Hargraves car and the Mark team that run it. He came to a drive day at Norwell on the Gold Coast, drove a car, loved it, and the career and the tenure with this team commenced from there. And he's got some big plans to do events like, the 12-hour, etc. That's all part of his mission. He's enjoying this racing.
It's a good story, getting some experience in a car they've done lots of endurance racing around the world in all sorts of 24-hour races in the Middle East and in Europe, and all the cars are named after famous racetracks around the world. So they don't have, chassis 1 and chassis 2 and chassis. They've got Monza and Suzuka and Bathurst. Got these emotive names. It's a fabulous story. Queensland-based operation, really taking on the world and showing what Australian ingenuity can do. The Mark Mazda V8 in this race.
Certainly one of those cars that you can get into going to a 500k race and going, right, we know we're going to get the 500ks,
Yep.
Let's just sort out the bit in between. There's no question mark over the fact that they've proven their endurance credentials, and jumping behind the wheel of is always an adventure, but certainly know you're going to get the 500ks out of it, that's for sure.
So we see Michael Harmon now honed right in on the back of Max Twigg. Mercedes versus BMW. The Mercedes doesn't even bother defending down into turn 1. Harmon sails through, takes the inside line, moves up into 6th place. The number 100 BMW, the laser plumbing and electrical. Steve Richards will jump in that car a little bit later on. Tony D'Alberto into the green, yellow and white WM Waste Management.
In fact, entry. Michael Harmon over the last lap was the only one down into the 130s now, already easing out to the high 131s, even into the 132. So Michael Harmon maintaining the rage with the 130 on that last lap around, hence why he just drove down the inside of the WM Waste Management Mercedes. There is the laser plumbing and electrical BP Ultimate BMW, the HSY Auto Parts car.
It's Ash Samardi.
Ash Samardi there. HSY new auto parts conglomerate in the Australian automotive landscape.
Has he got a puncture? The right rear on that just looked a little bit soft, and there is the number 58 car. That's Shane Van Gisbergen and Dushan Padiachi sharing that one. Currently running second on track. They've been off the road So we've got something happening down at Audi. There's action happening at McLaren as well. I wonder if those two will perhaps come together. Right, so, wow, it's all action here. So Audi in pit lane, the 58 in pit lane. We've also got one of the BMWs coming in as well, the GT4. So that was lots of action happening here.
Ash Samardi in the number 3, who we saw off, and Duke Padiachi in the McLaren we saw off there, and he's trying to negotiate the pits. Looks like he's driven past his pit bunker, but the Audi of Ash Samardi just slowly coming down. He looks like he's trying to feel if there's some damage to that car after that off he had, which we just saw, just ever so slowly coming down pit lane. So I wonder if he's got further driveline issues there. No, he seems to be getting back underway, back up to the 40k pit speed limit. As I mentioned, HSY, the naming rights sponsor on that car, new automotive spare parts group into Australia, certainly famous throughout Europe. It's slowly starting to pop up around Australia.
What's interesting here is that the McLaren's parked at a 45-degree angle. It's one car back from the BMW we're looking at in the insert. Notice there are 5 studs on the wheels there, rather than just a single centre stud. Us just servicing the car at Audi Sport Customer Racing. I wonder if they'll put fuel in that, then put it up on dollies. They've got the dolly wheels there. They're going to wheel this car back into the garage to have a look at what's going on here. Let's go to Cam with more.
Yeah, I've been watching this one, guys. I can tell you, could not turn the car left. They think it's a toe link in it, so they're about to do some work on the 3 at the moment. But Dylan O'Keefe doesn't even know this is going on. He'd gone for a quick pit stop just as this all unfolded.
Well, drama for the Aston Martin and Dylan O'Keefe car. O'Keefe was quickest in the Pro Driver qualifying session, 0.02 quicker than the pole-sitting Porsche in that session. Of course, average times across the 2 sessions so that both drivers have a say in the car's qualifying result. Dusan Padiachi, so he's been pushed into the garage as well. That car was sitting in second place. Had some oil driver issues in that car yesterday, which they've fixed, and the car started rear of grid. Padiachi's been in the car since the start. He actually came in on lap 17. He's in again on lap 33. It'll be interesting to find out if this, given that he's been pushed into the garage, if this counts as a compulsory pit stop. Might not be.
Well, they've done fuel, so for their intents and purposes, they've come in for
it's just the stationary time and whether they'll move the car, and if moving it into the garage counts as moving the car.
I guess at this point in time, the fact that they're in the garage now negates them from sort of really any podium result. You probably want to have a trouble-free run, particularly considering the run that Liam Talbot's now having with a 39-second lead over the rest of the field. Greg Rust following our stories.
I'm just at the McLaren guys with Devashan Padiachi and Shane Van Gisbergen. And Andy McElray, very experienced, as you guys know, with Carrera Cup cars and GT cars, team boss. He tells me they believe it's a broken steering wheel. I actually did a double take when he told me that. I said, you mean broken steering? He said, no, broken steering wheel.
Yeah, not something you regularly carry as a spare part, I guess, but SVG's now heading out with a new spare part. So there we go. Down there, a broken steering wheel.
Wow.
Not what you want to have happen heading into turn 1 here at Phillip Island, I can tell you that. Steering wheel coming off in your hand is not ideal, and there goes the McLaren. Now let's see what happens as that McLaren rejoins Devashan Padiachi. Has been in the lane.
What I'd like to find out is whether that counts as a compulsory pit stop or not. Perhaps Greg or Cam can check with one of the GT officials down there in the lane to confirm or deny that one. Because if it is, it's not such a bad thing. They've lost a bit of time, but they're still in the hunt here as we see the battle hotting out
losing
on track.
2 spots there. Ran wide down into turn 4, down to Greg Rust.
Just to complete the story, guys, I just double-checked it with Andy McElray because I couldn't believe I mean, he would tell the truth. He wouldn't lie to me, but he said we've gone down and actually borrowed Tony Quinn's steering wheel. So it's definitely a broken steering wheel. Trust me, that sort of stuff makes me nervous.
Yeah, you and me both, Greg. That's not what you want to hear. There's no. This is one of the tracks, I guess, like Mount Panorama, that you don't want to be left wanting for being able to turn the corner. It's very difficult, but of course, these days the steering wheel is such an integral part. All of the ABS settings, all of the traction control, the gear shifting mechanism is all run via that steering wheel. Let's hope that the McLaren, the game over McLaren, and the McLaren of Devashan Padiachi, there was contact there. That was Ash Samardi.
So Samardi was in the process of being passed.
Now in the shed getting work done. And I wonder if that was where Division Padiachi said, well, I can't steer out of this anymore.
Yeah.
I wonder where the issue concerned. So that is, the steering wheel is such a technical part of the GT car in the modern era.
In answer to your question, they served the compulsory pit stop first, so they put fuel in the car before they dropped it down on the jacks and put it into the garage, so all clear that it is a compulsory pit stop.
Thanks for that, Cam. That's good news then. So they're probably going to have to stop twice more, but it means the final stop they serve won't have to be to the compulsory pit stop window. They can come in and serve that as quick as they possibly can. Car is in fact back in the lane. Be interesting to see what they're doing here.
This looks like a compulsory pit stop.
Might be a systems check, in fact, just to make sure that they are happy with that car, because obviously the steering wheel's got so many controls on it.
Here's the other thing, is it the same series of McLaren steering wheel that the Tony Quinn car was? There's so many updates of software and even hardware on these things, but everything is being run because it's obvious. The driver's hands are there. Let's have all the controls within such easy reach of the fingertips. No different to a Formula One car. Gear shifting paddles on the back of the wheel, all the adjustments around in the front of the wheel, right in front of the driver. So they're not really taking their eyes off the job in front of them. They're almost by instinct adjusting a knob or a dial or a button that is right at their fingertips. Black flag now being showed at the start-finish line. We'll try and get across that story as well. So we'll see what that's all about. Certainly a black flag being shown down at the start-finish line, Cameron Van Oken.
Yeah, Darren, onto that. It's the 222 of Scotty Taylor's been shown a black flag for a drop with a drive-through penalty for an incident with car 6 earlier in the race.
So Jeff Emery and the big Merc getting tangled up earlier in the race. Jeff Emery now has just lost a couple of spots as Michael Harmon and Max Twigg as they've gone through. So now it is the Porsche leading the way of Liam Talbot on the Morris Finance leaderboard, with Fraser Ross in the McLaren in P2, Peter Hackett, defending endurance champion, in position number 3. Then it's Michael Harmon to Max Twigg and Jeff Emery, Tony Bates, Scotty Taylor, Tony Walls and Adrian Dietz rounding out the 10. And what a drive by Adrian Dietz after getting tangled up in an incident on the first lap, now in the 10.
Well, he's in car 6, the car that the 222 is about to serve a drive-through penalty for. So the incident, we presume, is going to be the Southern Loop clash on lap 1. As we see in back of shot there in the insert, the McLaren, the number 58, head back out on track. That was stationary for 162 seconds. So that was a little bit longer than the compulsory time needed for that car. They're now not in contention. They're going to be a couple of laps off the pace. Liam Talbot out front with a dominant 40-second advantage on lap 39. Duvish Padiachi and Shane Van Gisbergen rejoining 18th with just 35 laps. So they're some 4 laps adrift as we watch Max Twigg and Jeff Emery continue this battle. It rages over 5th place. Max Twigg currently holds that spot. Jeff Emery tucked up behind in 6th place. Tony Bates just starting to close the gap there as well. So it's all just starting to liven up there. Dave Crampton now in the lane for what will be his second compulsory pit stop. So a few guys taking their medicine in different ways in this race. Jeff Emery, though, he's been in amongst it throughout this race. There is the GT4, the KTM Crossbow, Dave Crampton at the wheel of that. Fuel only by the looks of it. You can tell if they're going to do a driver change in that pretty easily because the whole front of the car lifts up. There's no door per se, as we see Dan Gawn getting dressed with the help of Uncle Garth.
Helping each other out there. It's a bit of Anzac appeal there and a little bit of a pat on the shoulder there as well. Garth sends him on his way. Come on, mate.
They spotted there on TV.
Sure, Leanne will be onto that one, Garth. Letting you know, just give you an idea where our race leader is now down in turn 4, which is the Porsche of Liam Talbot, and the McLaren in position number 2 is just crossing the line. So the Porsche is now at Siberia. So if you know your geography around the Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit, that's about exactly half a lap away. So we're 40 laps in with half a lap lead to the number 911, the Walkinshaw GT car being driven by Liam Talbot. That is a commanding lead. They don't seem to be giving up either or relinquishing on it. The pace is still very, very quick out in front. But Fraser Ross and Peter Hackett, boy, they've got some work to do. There's only a couple of seconds between those two competitors. There is that lead. Liam Talbot over Fraser Ross on the Morris Finance leaderboard. 40 seconds back to Peter Hackett and then Michael Harmon. Cam in the lane.
Very quickly, Dylan O'Keefe, mate. So quick yesterday. It's frustrating when things like this happen, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's very frustrating. Quite disappointing. The car was quick. We had a short pit stop time, but the first pit stop went wrong with Ash overshooting, so we lost 17 seconds there. And then I haven't seen the replay, but yeah, there was contact with the McLaren. So yeah, quite disappointing, but a little bit frustrating too.
And how quickly and out of nowhere it comes. When you're a driver in these situations, lots of people watching, you walked out of the garage and everything was fine. It all erupted the moment you stepped outside.
Yeah, Garth and I just went to the bathroom to quickly get ready for our stint, and then I come back and the car's here in pieces. So not what you want, but what can I do?
Thanks, Dylan. And speaking of Garth, we'll grab him very quickly. Garth, Jeff Emery doing a great job out there at the moment.
Yeah, he is. He's doing a good job. We're a bit hampered with our pit stop time, but he's done a great job, kept the car up the front. We'll do our next pit stop shortly. I'll jump in and go for a burn.
We've heard Mercedes drivers saying it's not their track. You've said earlier today it's an Audi track. Do you feel confident?
Oh, we'll see. That Porsche's a long way up the road. They got a bit of an advantage with their pit stop time too, so we'll see what happens. Second half of the race, it all changes because all the basically just went wide at turn one. All the pros get in and it all changes, so I've got to get dressed.
All right, I'll let you go. Thanks, Garth.
So the reason he'll be getting dressed is because the minimum driver laps is 46, currently on lap 41 for our race leaders. So only 10 or so minutes before we probably see the likes of Garth Tander and Dan Gaunt jumping into these cars. We saw Tony Bates have a bit of a moment there at turn one, just touring the scenery around this picturesque Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit. Just dropped him off the back of this battle between Max Twigg and Jeff Emery. 5th and 6th place on the road. The WM Waste Management Mercedes from the Valvoline Audi R8 LMS.
Got to say good day to everyone at Dandenong Kia for Dylan O'Keefe there, right across the front of his helmet. It's a good opportunity, even though a bit of hard luck in the race, but get some sponsors out there for Dylan. I'm sure once he gets behind the wheel, they can get that car rectified. He will set a cracking pace in pursuit of some sort of points result for the team today.
He was incredibly quick yesterday during qualifying. Was the man to beat in the pro driver session as we look at Tony D'Alberto, about to step into the number 8 car, currently being driven by Max Twigg. He and Max combined to win at the Bend Motorsport Park in the first round of the Australian Endurance Championship. Those two therefore lead that competition in this green, yellow and white Mercedes AMG GT3. Really good drive from Max Twigg, just resisting the pressure that Jeff Emery is applying. Different lines through turn one, just giving Emery a bit of a high line into 2. But with Twigg on the inside, there's no way through for the Audi, so they continue to run line astern. So we have 42 laps on the board. Porsche of John Martin and Liam Talbot continue to lead over Fraser Ross and Peter Hackett.
42 laps in the bag, 59 remaining, sneaking our way ever so close to half race distance.
Not even halfway yet. Not even halfway.
Sneaking ever so quietly.
Warren Luff getting ready. Pyjamas are on, the gloves go on.
If Andrew swings around, he'll also
to climb into the number 11 Objective Racing McLaren, currently steered by Tony Walls in 8th place.
Revolution race gear onesie.
A bit different to the giraffe or the sheep or
not that much difference.
No fluffy tail.
I'd swap a pair of jeans and a t-shirt for a onesie and go for laps around Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit any day of the week, that's for sure. Actually, I noticed that Greg Rust and Cam are in the Cam's onesies down there.
Yeah, they're matching
themselves safe.
Matching onesies. It's I bet Cam probably wants an orange one, although it's probably the only orange we'll see for a couple of months because Netherlands not in the World Cup, are they? Cam, you listening? Out there, Max Twigg and Jeff Emery line astern. So too Michael Harmon now on the back of Peter Hackett. This is the battle for 3rd place. The 63 Corplex car is holding down that spot at the moment, but under full attentions of Michael Harmon. He's had a really good drive in this part of the race. Emerged back down in 9th place and has now moved his way back up into 4th place. It's good to stick the boot into Cam Vanderdungen every now and then because he trust me, he gives as good as he gets. Doing a good job for us down there in pit lane with Greg Rust in all the news.
The Morris Finance leaderboard just outside the 10 there is a bit of an interesting battle. Taylor, Dietz, Shaheen, Fawcett and And the first of our GT4s is Medecky as well.
Liam Talbot in pit lane, lap 43. Now, this is interesting. This is too early. Liam Talbot's in pit lane on lap 43. The minimum driving laps, by my maths, 46. He should be out there for another 3 laps before he comes in and can hand that car over.
Well, even though...
no, he didn't start that car, did he? So this is the second stop. He jumped in on, or in 911, he jumped in on lap 16. So this is the car's second compulsory pit stop. Means he'll now run and hand that car over. If you can fill for us, Daz, I'll do some quick maths.
The rule is 46 minimum laps for the driver there. They've done fuel. Now they're putting a right rear tyre on it as well. So that'd be almost compulsory too. After doing so many laps, we could probably start to see a bit of wear on the rear tyres on a Porsche. And we're going to do we're doing a full set, is it? Right hand side and the left hand rear at the moment.
So I would suggest that the magic number for that 911 Hot Wheels Car Care Products Porsche is going to be lap 62. So I think we'll see Liam Talbot in that car for another 19 or 20 laps. Then he'll come back in, hand that car back over to John Martin, who set this race alight in the opening stanza. He pulled out as we kept tabs. 22.7 second lead he had on lap 10. Did John Martin. Absolutely fabulous performance. Andrew Miedeke also in the pits, the first of the GT4 runners. That's his first stop, believe it or not. Lap 40, and that's their first stop. What a sensational stint that is. Long old day in the office for Andrew Miedeke. I would suggest that he's climbing out of that car. He is indeed. I can see out of our commentary box window as we look at the 911 in pit lane, serving the back end of their compulsory pit stop.
On lap 45, this is the battle out for second place at the moment. Fraser Ross back in the lead of this race after the pit stop for the Porsche. Peter Hackett and Michael Harmon, this is for 2 and 3 on the road. And Tony Bates just in the distant background there as well. But this is the fight for the podium at the moment. The Mercedes and the BMW as the Porsche exits the pits with these two guys out in front. That just shows you how much of a lead that Porsche had before it came in. He rejoins the field.
Oh, that's a big crash for the Ginetta. The number 55 Ginetta in the wall. That's over the top of Lukey Heights. Ria Nagara in the car. Heavy damage to the back end of that. You can see one of the wheels in the background there. There's a couple of other tyres rolling around because there's a tyre wall there. This is a race change. There's also fire now in the back of that car. Ria Nagara will look to jump out of that very, very quickly indeed.
We've got a safety car as well.
Yeah, safety car is out. This is going to change complexion of the race. It's a big incident out there.
And the door opened now. Ria Nagara opened the door of his own. Wow, it's a strange spot to be going off.
So Ria Nagara, a man who won 2 Trophy Series races here yesterday in the Ginetta for the first time, he's lost it at Lukey Heights, then backed it in to the tyre barrier. Of course, it's earth banking behind that, so it's thrown the car north. Wow, look at the air under that.
This is going to be quite a stop. They're going to have to rebuild that tyre wall. It's going to be an elongated safety car phase down there at the moment. He's out of the car, which is good news.
Incredible. This is it in full speed, so it's got away from him. I don't know if there's something broken in there. The way it was
tracking straight there. He hasn't made the corner even to get to it there. And then
we expect to see the 911 Porsche emerge or rise to the top of the pile here. So Tony Walls is in, Jackson Evans is in, Steve Richards is in, Cam McConville is in, Garth Tander is in. Up and down pit lane, lots of cars coming into the pit lane.
So half these drivers have only just jumped in prior to the last safety car, so they haven't even got hot under the collar yet. And continuing on around. So Liam Talbot has still got a number of laps that he can do before he has to hand over to John Martin to complete this journey. So that will happen under green conditions as well. His car won, and that will be Garth Tander. They're going to go straight for tyres, a full set of sticker tyres, brand new rubber, and that will release one of Australia's most talented race car drivers in one of the best that international motorsport can offer on one of the best tracks in the world. New tyres for Garth Tander. Talking about Jackson Evans looking at for lap records and Dylan O'Keefe. There's going to be one G Tander. Not as youthful as those guys, but certainly as handy as one of those guys to be able to release on lap record times. Let's see what happens there, because at the moment, G Tander is sitting in P3. in this race. Going to go down another lap to Liam Talbot as he comes around, but that will shake out because they'll have to get John Martin back in that car in the not too distant future.
Yeah, we decided lap 62 is the magic number for that car earlier on, didn't we? So only a couple of laps before we'll see that 911 in the lane, where he'll join Greg Rust.
In fact, Matt, I'm actually at the back in the paddock area where the Griffith Hogs team have been very kind to let us go on the tail lift, the hydraulic tail lift for their transporter. You can see beyond us here the damage to the Ginetta, which has been the massive headline story from today's round of Australian GT. Very fortunately, Rio Nagara is with us, and you are okay, mate. Unbelievable.
Yeah, mate, it was pretty big. It was a big shunt. Just coming over Lukey and as normal in fourth, and just all of a sudden the car just moved, and I was just a passenger. Yeah.
You feel like something broke? Why did it let go?
I feel like that. I don't know. It was weird. We're going to look at the data later and have a look and see what's happened. A bit of in-car footage, but maybe in the steering or maybe rear, something wasn't right. And I've been doing it all weekend, and yeah, it's just odd.
The team tell me that's fourth gear in this car. I mean, that's decent speed.
Yeah.
Walk us through how that felt, what you did to prep for the impact. How did it feel?
So over the top, it always gets a little bit loose over the top because you're coming over the top there, and the rear gets a bit loose. Turned it in, just sort of drifted a little bit, and then all of a sudden the car I just lost full control of the car, and then I turned trying to save it and just wouldn't, and the rear just continued to move straight into the tyre barrier. So I knew it was coming, so I just sort of put my arms down and just waited for the impact, mate, and it was big.
And you don't feel sore? You feel
I'm okay. Yeah, I'm okay. The car did the right thing. The impact was strong, but if you look at it, the whole the capsule there is pretty safe and intact. So, no, pretty lucky.
What's the feeling from now that you've had a chance to let it all sink in, and from what the team is saying about? I mean, the damage is extensive, isn't it?
Look, it is. And we'll just have a look at the data and see what happens from here.
Cars can be fixed, mate. Most importantly, it's good to know that you're okay. And a big thanks to the team for kindly letting us have a look at what is one very sad car after today's GT race.
Thanks very much, Greg, down there. And of course, we've just been lucky enough to see that replay again. Explains it perfectly, Rio Nagaro. If he's had a racing weekend of the ultimate highs and lows, race wins yesterday and a wreck car today, that he's a little bit down in the mouth. But I tell you what, taking away from this weekend, Rio Nagaro has acquitted himself well in the GT Trophy race, as we see the Porsche in the lane and getting a new set of wheels and tyres on there as well. So John Martin will be released. He was epic in the first part of this race, 36 seconds over 18 laps. Let's see what he can do now.
Yeah, he was really in a class of one in the first 20-odd laps of this race. That car first came in on lap 16 for Liam Talbot to jump in. He's now jumping out, having completed his minimum laps. John Martin being strapped into that car, some fresh Pirelli P0 tyres being bolted on. That's their third compulsory pit stop. They're done. Whatever happens from this point on, they're to the flag at this point. They are the only car in the motor race at this point to be in that position. There's cars out there that still owe us 2 compulsory pit stops. They are sitting absolutely perfectly at this point. We see the number 8 Tony D'Alberto car also in pit lane now.
So Liam Talbot will be out, and he will be, I dare say, talking to Greg Rust in the not-too-distant future. They're now serving that time there. There's a bit of chat just going on radio checks, and there goes the Twig car as well with Tony D'Alberto
that's
down the lane.
Third compulsory stop as well, so they're looking good. They're just on the way in. They're a little bit further up the lane, so they're looking good. The 58 is back in as well. That should be their third compulsory stop as well.
We'd expect to still see Daniel Gaunt, who's currently showing in the race lead, and Jake Foraker back in the Merc. So the AMG should be back in. So they're still thereabouts or in contention as the Porsche is leaving the lane now.
Steve Richards has just gone the quickest of anyone, fastest lap of the race that time through. Let's just keep an eye on the Duvish and Padiacci car. I think they've served their 3 compulsory pit stops. I think this is the 4th stop just to switch it to Shane Van Gisbergen, and that car could be right to go to the flag as well now. And with Shane Van Gisbergen, they're a lap or 2 down. They might get another couple of positions as everyone around them stops. Let's go down to Cameron Van Dungen, who is in a very busy pit lane.
Just got Liam Talbot getting himself ready. Got to get the hat on, mate. Got to get the sponsor in there. The last official stop done. Johnny Martin in the car, and it couldn't have gone better to this point.
Yeah, it's hard to know in the car. You just go into a number, your engineer's telling you good job and everything. So at the moment it looks okay. 2 red flags, that's a bit unusual, but yeah, as long as the drivers involved are okay, that's our main goal.
Those drivers are, but strategically your team has made some great calls today.
Yeah, you can't underestimate Walkinshaw GT3. It's a very, very amazing team that they make the right calls at the right time. And, you know, if they make the call, then they've thought long and hard about it. It's not just firing from the hip. So going through all the scenarios before the event, and we're just in the box seat at the moment, apparently.
Yourself and the team have pretty much done their job. It's down to John Martin now to bring it home. You must have the utmost confidence in him.
Yeah, Johnny's awesome. It's been a real privilege last year and this year working with him, learning off him, and I think we work really good as co-drivers and back it up with the team in the car. It's a combined effort. It's not one person, it's a team, and I can't thank everyone enough for all the effort they put in today.
Good luck. Hopefully we see you on that podium.
Thank you. Fingers crossed.
Great to see Liam playing tribute to the team. Matt, you and I saw that team with a manual going about it, an aero update, and doing some very fine adjustments at Sandown. He's right in thanking the team. The guys have got to do the hands and feet. They've got to do the dance at the wheel, don't they? But the team behind them are the ones that are telling them to come in now. They plan to have Johnny Martin.
They're off. They've got damage to the back end of that Porsche. Sorry to cut you off there, Daz. John Martin's just out of the lane. He's missing the rear bumper. He's gone off at turn 1. There's damage to the right front of that car by the look of it. The front splitter also looks amiss. The car that looked bang on for have a look at the dust and stuff coming out the front.
Front of it now too.
What's gone on to John Martin? The car that looked bang on, they've dominated that.
There's a hose leaking on the road there, so
he's pulling
up
off.
The lane.
He's pulling up. This is absolute disaster. Both not in terms of this race, but in championship as well. There's 300 points on offer this weekend. The endurance championship for this car now all went over. The Australia GT Championship now is going to take a massive hit. He's gone off. It's even well before then. What has happened? That's Southern Loop.
He's hit the wall. Hit the wall.
I reckon he's
on
done
the way in.
I reckon he's done just
the GT4 cars.
I think that's exactly what he's done. And he stopped that car. He's on the escape road. He's actually outside of the limits of the circuit here. Wow, the highs and lows. What the racing gods giveth, they taketh away, almost in a heartbeat.
Oh, that's a shame.
Wow,
that's absolute
drama.
Absolutely gut-wrenching for that team, and he is well and truly behind, so he won't make any effect on the continuation of this race. Jake Foraker now in the lead of the race, but has to pit. Stephen Richards setting lap record times, or fastest laps of the race, 2 laps in a row now. He goes through on the number 8, which has got Tony D'Alberto on the wheel, and that is actually for a race position. That's now 6th and 7th on the road, swapped around. It's now Richo into position number 6. Tony D'Alberto goes back 1 spot. Jake Foraker now in the pits. Warren Luff in the pits. So they'll get their mandatory pit stops done and dusted. We're going to have about 26 minutes of unabated raw GT Championship racing sans the Hot Wheels 911. That is absolutely gut-wrenching. Yep, that is horrible. There. Pits from shots from the pits. The crew at this point have called it.
You've got a feel for them, don't you?
Oh,
they've done everything right. We haven't seen what's going on, so let's not second guess anything from up here. Gut wrenching, as you say, Daz, for these guys. They've been the class of the field all day long. But what we are going to do, I'm just trying to dissect the race at this point.
Put the book away, Matt.
We've got a number of cars that have completed their compulsory pit stops. By my math, have a look at the stuff on the road.
Yeah.
There's debris.
Oh, yeah. There's still debris from the GT4 crash.
Well, that was all cleaned up, of course.
Yeah.
So that looks like it's from the Porsche. So interesting to see if we do catch that one. That car does have an onboard in it. So if you do catch the highlights, I dare say we'll have picked that up. Craig Baird and Garth Tander in the lane. There's a big chunk of looks like earth in the middle of the circuit down there. You can see the rear splitter. So by my maths, these are the drivers who've made their compulsory pit stops. Twig and D'Alberto, Walls and Luff, Bates and Gawn, Fraser Ross and Jackson Evans, Michael Armand and Steve Richards, and of course the Porsche, which is now sitting outside turn 4.
And Garth Tander and Craig Baird now back in the lane doing their final compulsory pit stop. Bairdo's getting right-hand side tyres. Garth's already got a new set of tyres, 3-4 laps ago when he came in for his previous compulsory pit stop, and they're now looking around the back of the car as the helicopters start to take off as the AMG guests are leaving for the day after their lap in the morning. Great to have had all the guests down from AMG.
So at this point, Jake Foraker is listed as our race leader. We're under safety car here. The circuit's just gone yellow. I suspect this is going to be for the debris down at turn 2. Safety car, though, has peeled off Jake Foraker at the head of the pack. Will now control the pace. He is a lap clear, so he doesn't need to go and squabble or defend too hard. He just needs to keep this nice and clean through the next couple of laps until he comes in and takes that stop. We've got some 15 minutes or so left before we'll go time certain. Time for 10 laps or so. This race will change complexion again. It's done it so many times. We are so slow to the green flag once again. Jake Foraker this time, though, does put the hammer down, leads the field down towards turn 1, over the little crest, down the hill into that right-hander. They sweep across the road. Foraker from Gaunt. Steve Richards is in there, looking at the back of the second-placed Audi. So the leading car a lap clear of the field. That will be adjusted, we understand, when he makes a pit stop a little bit further back. See Garth Tander putting a move on the sole remaining KTM crossbow of Trent Harrison.
So lots of debris littered around the exit and entry of turn 2 there. The Lamborghini parts on the exit, Porsche parts, and KTM and Aston Martin parts on the entry. And Jake Foraker now has to drive the laps of his life to try and keep this car in contention. Dan Gort, Stephen Richards behind him, Tony D'Alberto, Johnny Reed. Massive effort for the driver and crew of car number 10. Jackson Evans now also in the 59. Luke Yulden in the 777. We know that car's not awesome. Luke's told us that on a number of occasions, as has Yasser, that the car's not doing exactly what they want it to do. It's doing the best they can with the equipment that they've got after a bit of a shunt yesterday when Yasser was at the wheel. And it's Craig Baird, Warren Luff, Garth Tander, Cam McConville, Shane Van Gisbergen, a virtual star lineup out of Supercars.
Pretty good, that lot, isn't it?
Yep.
Some pedigree buried in the middle of this pack. It won't remain there for long, you suggest. Likes of Van Gisbergen not going to make too much more progress. It's now 3 laps adrift of the car ahead of him. The field rushes down the front straight. The light beginning to fade. The headlights blazing on these GT3 machines. There's only one headlight on Shane Van Gisbergen's car. Dylan O'Keefe in pit lane in number 3. That will be the final compulsory pit stop for that car.
Garth Tander driving past Warren Luff down the straight that time through. So Luffy just getting the short back and sides from GT. And on the back of this group is Cam McConville, and Shane Van Gisbergen's just gone through on him as well. So believe it or not, that's not even in the top 10 at the moment. There's Garth Tander, again on the back of that McLaren. Oh, look at this. This is a big hurry up from Craig Baird on the back of the Opticoat McLaren.
Of course, the 59 is looking at the long-term game as well in championship contention. One of their main rivals is now out of the race in the 911 Porsche. Heartbreak down there at Walkinshaw GT3. They did everything right all day. We still don't know what the cause of that moment and the cause of their retirement is. We saw the after effects, but we don't know why that's happened.
Dylan O'Keefe back in the pit lane now too. So that will be...
that should be that car's 4th stop. They spent a lot of time in the lane earlier on with damage from a clash with
Dylan, admittedly fed up with talking to commentators and pit reporters during the last stoppage. Unscheduled stoppage in this race, that's for sure. Punctuated by 2 absolutely unscheduled stoppages after some big hits at the wall. And if you're just tuning in, everybody has walked away A-OK. There's some pretty torn up GT material out there, but certainly all of our drivers, the human aspect, will walk away and will fight for another day, but really binned up some cars today.
So this is round 4 of the Australian GT Championship, round 2 of the Australian Endurance Championship. Craig Baird getting feisty on the back of Jackson Evans, the 59 McLaren, fending off the 222 Scott Taylor Motorsport entry, the Mercedes AMG GT3. These two squabbling at this point over 6th and 7th place. You know, just trying to duck up the inside, leave them on the outside at Hayshed. We've seen earlier on that doesn't work. Peter Hackett put a move around the outside of, strangely enough, that 59 car going over Lukey Heights.
Interestingly enough, all the Merc guys have been at absolute pains to tell us that it's not a Merc track this weekend, haven't they? Then there they are fighting right to the very end. So, yeah, just wait till we tune it up underneath you, and then we go. Here's live shots from inside the Eagleston garage. There's Martin Wagg, a Porsche Cup competitor from many years ago, and of course Rachel Eccleston's father. She's been by her dad's side right throughout his racing career, and now has her own race team with husband Ben. Martin Wagg, of course, the recipient of the Pyark Competitor of the Year award some way back in the 90s. And great to see him down there in the pit area helping out the team. There's the leaderboard. Jake Foraker, 1 minute and 29 second lead over Daniel Gaunt, Stephen Richards and Tony D'Alberto. And as we say that on the Morris Finance leaderboard, Jake Foraker is in the lane.
That confuses me. I don't understand why they've taken that stop. By my counting, that's their fourth stop. And in fact, they've even got 4 stops listing on the timing screens here. So we'll make sense of that afterwards.
What about Craig Baird here?
He's getting a little bit feisty out there, isn't he?
A little bit of Craig Lowndes Morse code on the back of that McLaren. It's Hotel Opticode McLaren.
There is certainly fight left in Craig Baird.
No doubt.
Lives and breathes his motorsport as we see Jake Foraker and the Peter Hackett car in the lane. It's the insert down the bottom right-hand corner. So they've also got a drive-through penalty that we heard Ben Eggleston mention. Now, just going to see whether they serve it as a drive-through or if it's time added on to this pit stop. Earlier we have seen time added on to pit stops for start infringements.
Yeah, it will certainly drop this car out of contention, because here comes the Daniel Gaunt car, and that puts him into the lead. The KFC car that he's sharing with Tony Bates, Stephen Richards in hot pursuit, 2 seconds behind. Tony D'Alberto, a second and a half behind there. Johnny Reid, Jackson Evans, they all roll through now. Craig Baird, Luke Yilden, Garth Tander, Cam McConville, Warren Luff, all rolling through as Jake Foraker now scores down in 11th place. It's 4:39 and 33 seconds, and we have got 10 minutes left in this third quarter. What game has 3 quarters in it? We've had
That'd be thirds.
We've had
That'd be
thirds. Yeah, exactly. Thirds of the race. 33 1/3% of the race done. The first stanza. Well, not quite that, but certainly a race in 3 parts.
So Dan Gaunt is our race leader from Steve Richards. Tony D'Alberto in 3rd place. So Audi, BMW and Mercedes. The Germans will be happy tonight. Then Johnny Reid in the 2nd Audi, the number 10 car. We are looking at the 63 of Jake Foraker. That extra stop has dropped them down to 11th. We need to try and understand what that is post-race. Dan Gaunt looking good here.
And there goes the sun.
There's a song about that too.
And the setting of the sun.
So Dan Gaunt holds a really good 2 and a bit second lead over Steve Richards, who has a bit of an air gap back to Tony D'Alberto. So it's all spacing out a little bit. The battle we were watching, the Jackson Evans and Craig Baird squabble, has just extended a little bit. So we look at the number 10 of Johnny Reid and Andrew Fawcett. Cars being run by International Motorsport, a New Zealand team that are here for the weekend. Great to see them here. That team, founded in 1960, that team there in the Audi is older than McLaren. And they also hail from New Zealand.
And they've had acquitted themselves quite well at Mount Panorama too in the last few years in 12 hours, bringing Porsches over.
Yeah, they've done some good stuff in racing since day dot. They're actually looking at a new premises, and it turns out it's McLaren's old premises, the one that McLaren started in back in the 1960s. So
well, if it's fit for purpose, it's fit for purpose.
Absolutely. So great to see those guys out here currently running around in 4th place is Johnny Reid, former A1GP driver for New Zealand.
A number of them here this weekend, haven't we?
Yeah, he's a race winner actually for New Zealand as well in A1GP. Yeah, Hackett and John Martin.
Yeah. John Martin, Super League racer as well.
Yeah, won the championship there.
That was a very cool series.
So Garth Tanner's just gained a spot on that last lap to move up into 7th place over Luke Yilden, but Dan Gaunt looks pretty comfortable out front. He's just eking that gap out. 2.6 seconds now is his advantage. So he's
look at these best laps being set on lap 71, lap 60, late 60s. They're now all opening up. Daniel Gaunt, the leader by a narrow margin, and there it is visually there down the straight. Stephen Richards. Will it be another podium in endurance racing for the BMW? Well, with just under 7 minutes remaining, question will be answered very, very soon. Garth Tander in 7th place there. Luke Yulden, reigning Bathurst 1000. He just updated us. It's 4 months until they have to defend that. Going to go back-to-back. Cam McConville in the first of the Lamborghinis, doing a great job. Just wonder where the McPherson and the Trofeo Motorsport Lamborghinis are. They would have been very strong here this weekend as we go down to the pit lane with Cam.
John Martin back in the garage made heartbreak when we saw that Porsche pull to the side of the track. Can you tell us what happened?
Yeah, just like so we pitted and done the outlap. The outlap was pretty good. Got down into turn 1 and then right just like on the exit of the corner, just like washed wide a little bit. Like it's a bit weird really. So we're just looking to see if anything failed because it was like, you know, quite weird. But yeah, sort of washed wide and then half on the curb, half not on the curb, and it's, you know, torn the splitter off and done a fair bit of damage obviously. So it busted the radiator and that's basically why we had to stop.
You've been buried in data since you got back. Any ideas on what it could be?
No, we're still looking. Like I haven't, you know, didn't enter the corner any faster. Brake point was slightly earlier and a bit more pressure. So it's like, from my side, it's like there's nothing different to what we'd done earlier on in the race today. So it's weird. It's still obviously my fault. I was in the car, I was driving, but yeah, it's just trying to work out like why or what could have done different.
Thanks, John.
No worries.
Yeah, I tell you what, the highs and lows of motorsport, and it doesn't matter what level, when it goes wrong, it just absolutely tears your heart out. It's just, that feeling just never leaves you, the gut-wrenching feeling. And it's just lucky you get the days where it goes well, because it's when days like today when it hasn't gone well, you go, well, I want that good feeling. I just want it one more time. That's what keeps race drivers coming back. And we actually saw that with Sue Hughes this morning. You know, she said in the Radicals, she said, you know, I get the helmet on and the red mist comes down, and that's what I keep coming back to the track for. That's what it's all about. There's too many days off to not want to get back to the track.
So Dan Gaunt is having an on day at the moment. Currently leads this race by 2.95 seconds off over Steve Richards. Tony Alberto holds down third. The championship leading number 8 WM Waste Management Mercedes AMG GT3. We are looking at the 777 and the 6. This is Luke Yulden and Cam McConville, two men with supercars experience, battling it out down there at the bottom end of the top 10, 8th and 9th. Those two. In 5th place is Jackson Evans, chasing down Johnny Reid, who by my maths owes us a pit stop. And Garth Tander in this one as well. Craig Baird has dropped a spot to Garth Tander. So while Alberto was tucked up in behind young Jackson Evans, he's now fallen behind the Gary Rogers Motorsport driver in his day-to-day working life. You know, the ho-hum of the 9 to 5. His role is at Gary Rogers Motorsport, currently sitting in 6th place in the number 1 Valvoline Audi R8 LMS.
Actually, I think he spends more time working on the Tander Sport Formula Ford that they've got in the shed that they run in the State Series than he does down at GRM. Garth does all the mechanics on there. Last spoke to him, he was buying a clutch thrust bearing for the car. He said to me, it's the same one that Borland's used, so it must be right.
It's a man who lives and breathes motor racing of any kind. Of course, he's run all sorts of things in the past. The Tander Sport have run Formula 3s and what have you. Here he is, though, at the wheel of the Jamek Pem Valvoline Audi R8, currently in 6th place. Not a bad recovery, given that they've effectively taken an extra stop. That second stoppage really did hurt that car. If it weren't for that, they'd have taken just 3 and probably would have been some 30 seconds up the road, somewhere perhaps where Dan Gaunt is out in control of this race. 75 laps in the books. Dan Gaunt from Steve Richards, Tony D'Alberto, Johnny Reid in 4th place, Jackson Evans 5th, Garth Tander in 6th. We've then got Craig Baird in 7th, Cam McConville in 8th in the Lamborghini Huracan. Behind them,
Cam
Luke
McConville's ranging right up on the back of Craig Baird now. In fact, that looks like it's going to be set for position change. He's monstering all over the back. There's a bit of old school racing between those two going on out there.
There's a mumbo in that Lamborghini, isn't there? Yep. He's certainly coming on in the latter part of this race. They've done a really good recovery job. Adrian Dietz taking the first part of the race, having dramas on the opening lap. Adrian Dietz ran the first 50 laps before handing the car over to Cam McConville, who's just finishing the job that Adrian Dietz set up in the first part of this race. Fraser Ross just showing the blue headlights, that McLaren, to the wing mirror of Johnny Reid. You're not going to rattle him too easily. Man who's got vast amounts of international experience behind him. So Jackson Evans in there at that 59. Behind him is Garth Tander. So it's an interesting sandwich to be in the middle of. A man who's about to get a lesson, you feel?
76 laps ago, we thought we'd set off on 101 lap race distance. I don't think we're going to make it there, but it's currently the race is being led by Dan Gaunt, Stephen Richards, Tony D'Alberto, Johnny Reid, Jackson Evans, Garth Tander, Craig Baird, Cam McConville. Then it's Luke Youlden. Rounding out the 10 is Warren Luff. Then it's to Jake Foraker in the number 63 AMG that led the race for some time. And we must be getting very close to a checkered flag being unfurled because all of the high-vis vests that the photographer's wearing are all
here it is,
bunched up. Coming around now, we'll get another lap at 16:49 and another lap. So we'll get another 2 laps, I would suggest, in this race. Dan Gaunt doesn't look as though he's going to come under too much pressure, but I tell you what, Garth Tander is applying pressure to Jackson Evans.
Big slide there from Jackson Evans. He's done well to hang on to that. He's going to lose a spot, you would think, to Garth Tander, who's going right around the outside.
He's going to go hot shoulder to shoulder.
They're going to continue going side by side through Stoner Curve. That will then give Garth Tander, you would think, the inside line when they get down to Honda. Can Garth Tander brave it around the outside? Absolutely he can. We know how good he is on the brakes. Garth Tander capitalises. It took him 3 corners, but he punished Jackson Evans with that slide at turn 1.
We first saw Jackson Evans racing in the Porsche GT3 Cup Challenge a number of seasons ago now. He won that year, and now he's just been given a little bit of a lesson by one of Australia's finest race car drivers. Doesn't matter what he jumps in. Garth Tander, he's doing a good job. Teaming up with Jeff Emery, and I'd say Jeff's pretty pleased with what Garth does, otherwise he wouldn't keep having him back like this. He fits in well down there at the Audi Sport Customer Racing Team, does Garth Tander, and that was why those guys down at the Audi Sport Customer Racing Team are hard-nosed racers. They don't like to see people back out of opportunities like that, and the opportunity was given to Garth in the Exeter 1, and the job was completed under brakes, under hard braking. And the Audis, Matt, we've been talking about it all weekend, have been awesome under brakes at turn 4. Garth Tander using the strength of the Audi right there.
Absolutely, he's done well to hang it around the outside. We're not too far away from the checkered flag falling on this race. The team's heading over from the pit lane to the pit wall to congratulate their drivers. Out front, Dan Gaunt, 3.5 seconds clear of the field. And Steve Richards, and the number 8 Mercedes AMG GT3 of Tony D'Alberto. Johnny Reid currently in 4th place, although he's now in this final lap under the attentions of Garth Tander, who's really putting in a charge towards the back half of this race. By my maths, as we finish this, Tony D'Alberto and Max Twigg will maintain the championship lead. Remains to be seen, though, just what happens behind him. Garth Tander and Johnny Reid glued together. There's a bit of a traffic jam forming behind the BMW M4 GT4 of Brett Strom, who's currently leading that competition from Trent Harrison. So, Gaunt from Richards, D'Alberto just half a lap from home.
So the car that next crests Lukey Heights, for those watching locally, is our race leader, the checkered flag. There is nothing on track between him and the checkered flag. From now, as one of the marked cars goes across the line, the checkered flag has been unfurled and is being displayed for Daniel Gaunt. This young man, it's been a while since he's greeted the checkered flag. He's driven everything and he drives the wheels off it. A really good steerer is Dan Gaunt, an honest racer. Pieces deals together, gets a drive, and with Tony Bates, out he strikes here at Phillip Island and takes what was going to be a 101. We'll work out the exact amount of kilometres it was, but it was 78 laps in the bag, and what a great run there. Stephen Richards continues the great form of BMW, and Tony D'Alberto brings home the first of the Mercedes in the field.
The best result of the BMW's 2.5-year career. Fabulous drive from Dan Gaunt and Tony Bates. The number 24 KFC backed Audi. Tony Bates drove until lap 50. Then Dan Gaunt stepped in, finished the job off to win by 4.2 seconds at the flag. That also moves Tony Bates to the top of the Australian GT Championship. Fantastic to see Ria Nagara down there celebrating with the team.
Why wouldn't he be? Yeah. 2 wins for Audi yesterday in the Trophy Series. A tough day at the office today, but they're a very happy crew, aren't they? Very happy. The Audi Sport Customer Racing outfit, they do a good job.
Fabulous job down there by the Audi Sport Customer Racing Australia team. First, 4th and 5th for Audi in that one. Jackson Evans coming home in 6th. Johnny Reid held on to 4th ahead of Garth Tander. Fabulous racing. This is then confirmation of the results as they cross the line. Dan Gaunt, 4 and a bit seconds ahead of Steve Richards in the BMW. Then Tony D'Alberto, who with Max Twigg continued to lead the Australian Endurance Championship. Then Johnny Reid in 4th, Garth Tander in 5th, Jackson Evans in 6th, Craig Baird in 7th. Cameron Conville, Luke Jordan and Warren Lupp round out the top 10.
I tell you what, our 2 pit reporters finished on the lead lap as well, didn't they? After all that hard work in the segmented 3-segment race, those 2 guys worked very hard down there today, and we thank them for their efforts, as well as all of our volunteer officials trackside. They do a fantastic job. There's Jake Foraker in 11th, Shane Van Gisbergen 12th, Adam Hargraves, Brett Strom, Trent Harrison, Dylan O'Keefe. And then it is the Porsche of John Martin that didn't get home in the end. Vince Cesario, Jeremy Gray and Rio Nagaro, all non-finishers. And here we go. We started this just after 1 o'clock, and we've got 3 parts of it. It was bathed in sunshine, and right now it's sun setting. This multi-million-dollar field just came down, cruising ever so nicely. John Martin using all the strengths of the Porsche. He controlled it so well this start of this race. In fact, the first 18 laps, I would expect John Martin was a dream day, and that's what makes what's happening down in the garages right now so hard, because the dream day ended so abruptly.
Yeah, it became a nightmare later on, didn't it? But just about on tick over towards the green flag. Eventually took it and then scampered clear of the field. He was nearly 3 seconds clear on the end at the end of the opening lap. A little bit further back, Michael Harmon got swamped into turn 1, hung the BMW around the outside. They brought that home in 2nd place in the end. Good to see Jeff Emery was up there as well. So too Tony Bates slipping into 3rd as they go around the 2nd corner. A little bit further back, some drama. That was a result. The result of some contact between Scott Taylor and Adrian Dietz ruled Tony Quinn out of the race. His co-driver Grant Denyer didn't even get a steer. Luke Jordan had a bit of an off at turn 1.
A very rare off, actually, for Luke Jordan. I don't think I've ever seen him steer a car off into the boonies, but certainly the car broke free. They didn't have the Mercedes under them that they wanted to today. And here was the run down into MG that saw Michael Harmon arrest that spot back off there as we've got the pit lane now full of GT cars, and winners will go down to the pit lane now with Greg Rust covering it off with the winners. And
Thank you very much, Darren Smith. Look at this. Very happy winners. Tony Bates, Dan Gaunt. Great job. I'll start with you, Dan. You saw the checkered flag, mate. What a race. Did you think at that midway point you were actually in this one to win it?
At the stoppage, I knew we were kind of in the mix. But a little bit of luck with the Porsche. I don't know what happened, but I just saw a Hot Wheels line on the side of the track at turn 2. So we're a bit lucky there. And Batesy, what a stellar job. Been a long time going. Been driving with him for 5 years now. Yeah, finally got a win.
Tony Bates, what a race to win.
Oh, fantastic, mate. The sprint races are great, but, to win this with a great team like NPC, great boys on my car. My old mate beside me is just stellar. So, Enduro wins are unbelievable.
Well done. You keep heading to the podium. We're going to go and grab the 2nd place man, Steve Richards and Michael Harmon. Steve, you're running away, mate. Come on. We're going to have a chat to you. Great job, mate. We knew you were in contention all the way. Great stint from yourself, and you must be very proud of your co-driver as well.
Yeah, complete weekend, really. We worked pretty hard at it all weekend, and we've come away with a good result. It's good to have Mikey back, and we're going all right in the championship now too. So it's fantastic.
And it must make you very proud, as we've talked about throughout today's coverage. You've worked hard on this BMW program, and this must be a nice reward.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we've been going at it for this our 3rd year, and we're starting to see a bit of the fruits of our hard work. So, but you got to do a good job in the pits. You got to do a good job with the strategy, and we've both got to drive it pretty well. So, great.
Michael, I'm going to have a quick chat to you. Let's see where our other drivers are. We'll start swinging back up because we're going to go up to this podium above us. But, mate, it was a great stint from you in the middle of this race as well. You must be happy with your drive.
No, definitely very happy, mate. It was an exciting race, GT3 racing like this with all the different cars. It's, different than what I used to, and had a lot of fun.
All right, let's get heading up to the podium. Come on over here, guys, as well, because Tony D'Alberto's jumping in on the Audi photo. Tony D'Alberto, come on, we'll start walking through. We'll walk through the garage as well. Max Twigg, great job. We'll sneak through here. Come on to the journey. Let's just get the camera in front of us. Twigg, Max, come back, mate. We'll walk this way. Come into the shot. I'm going to start with you, Tony, mate. What a race. What a weird race.
a very weird race, and we just kept trucking along. Team didn't make any mistakes. We certainly didn't have the pace today, but I'm really stoked to get points, get another podium, keep our championship alive.
Max, GT racing, I remember last year you just seemed to be in the wars, didn't you, mate? And now you're on the podium here at one of the Australian Endurance Championship rounds here at Phillip Island.
Well, it appears we've got our shit together, doesn't it? It took us 12 months, but I think we've got it sorted now. It's just running like a well-oiled machine, mate. It's good. The crew's excellent. We're marrying together well.
We'll keep heading up. We'll get the camera. He's going to make him go backwards for us as we head on up towards the podium as well. I want to stay with you, Max, for a minute, mate, because we did talk about it before. Last year, I remember it just seemed every round we went to, you had breakdowns, you had mechanical issues, you had incidents with other cars. All of that, though, moments like this makes up for it all, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. I mean, it's just having a clean race and competitors are competing fairly with you and, racing cleanly, it just makes all the difference, Sometimes you just get involved in that stuff last year. You can't explain it. Sometimes it just comes in threes, but we're all clear now. It's going good.
Well, mate, look, here we go. We make our way into the media centre as well and get ourselves set not far away. It was hard luck for these gentlemen here that did a wonderful job. But we see on the podium today Mercedes, BMW and Audi as well. And we're getting ourselves set for the final podium. And before we do that, though, guys, let's go back up and have a look at some of the highlights from today's race. And there were plenty of them.
Certainly were. The highlights continue to roll here. There was a bit of a nudge on the way through, which the car that ultimately went through to win the race there with Dan Gaunt. I don't think it was Dan at the wheel at that time. I think it was Tony Bates there at that stage. And here was a bit of a hip and shoulder in there. And ultimately, Dylan O'Keefe jumped aboard that car as Ash Samadhi spun it round the HSY All-Star Equipment outfit. They're pushing their way through. They eventually got home in 15th place, I think it was, for car number 3. There was the first reason we had the race suspended. That was Rio Nagaro. Off the back of 2 race wins in his Trophy Series car yesterday, Rio did get out of this. That was a nasty shunt. And this was the second stanza of the race. The race in 3 parts ultimately got through to 78 laps, planned 101. And it wasn't too much longer afterwards that we got things back underway. The McLaren jumped away. Jake Foraker was in there as well. And this part of the race became a bit confusing for some of the teams because they had to get drivers out before they exceeded maximum laps. And this was what set fire to the second lot. Ultimately, this led to a red flag and the stopping of the race. There is the KTM crossbow of Vince Tesario. He went in down at turn 2 there. And wait for it, because one of his peers is just about to arrive on the scene. And there it is, the Vantage of Jeremy Gray, the Bilstone Madeki Motorsport car, into the side of the already stricken KTM. We had another stoppage, about 30 minutes on the grid there, while the crews, our fantastic volunteer officials and the staff here locally at the track worked very, very hard to get the race back underway. They did that, and as the sun started to set, we really did see this race fall apart, unfortunately, for this car on screen now. The Walkinshaw GT3 crew did an amazing job. Both drivers did an amazing job. Just a momentary lapse there, and that car strewn Porsche litter all the way from turn 1 up to turn 2 there. So a real shame. A real victory that was absolutely snatched off that Porsche at that time, and really feeling for the crew and the drivers of that car down in the pit area at the moment.
Yeah, such a tough weekend, or tough way to end the weekend, because they looked so strong in the first part of this race to the 911. When we got going following a restart, it was all about Dan Gaunt, who emerged at the head of the race. Really did a phenomenal job with Tony Bates, who set that one up nicely. So those two cross the line first. Tony Bates now leads the Australian GT Championship. Max Twigg and Tony D'Alberto continue to lead the Australian Endurance Championship with another podium here in Phillip Island.
So that is the end of racing here trackside. Locally, of course, we'll go to our next round, which will be at Queensland Raceway. It's a couple of weeks away at the 26th, 27th, 28th and 29th of July QR. But it's to Greg Rust for the victory lane and the podium.
Ladies and gentlemen, congratulations to all of our race winners here, and a very warm thank you to all of the volunteers from Australian GT. And now, podium time. Please put your hands together for our round winners from round 4 of the 2018 CAMS Australian GT Championship. Kindly presenting the trophies this afternoon, Chris Montgomery from Pirelli. Taking pole position, we acknowledge the great work of Hot Wheels Car Care Products, Walkinshaw GT3, their duo, Liam Talbot and John Martin.
We'll move now to the GT4 class. Second place from Vantage Freight M Motorsport, David Crampton and Trent Harrison.
Our winners, RHC Jorgensen, Strom by Mark Cars, the pairing of Brett Strom and Darren Jorgensen, the Americans. Well done. Now, ladies and gentlemen, to the championship class. And in third place here at Phillip Island, from WM Waste Management, congratulations, Tony D'Alberto and Max Twig. In second position today, very happy too, a good result in Tailem Bend. They're second here this weekend, BMW Team SRM, Steve Richards and Michael Armand. And our winners today, representing KFC, C-Tech Laser, MovieNet, B&B, the pairing of Dan Gaunt and Tony Bates. A fabulous weekend in the 2018 CAMS Australian GT Championship. A lot unfolded this afternoon. Now, gentlemen, time for the podium celebrations.
What a fantastic result there for those three teams getting up there. And I tell you what, Matt Koch, that BMW team are taking one step at a time, aren't they? 3 years, one step, one step, one step. Third, second spot. You know, the next round is going to be at Sydney Motorsport Park. Will they take that top step?
Yeah, just one more to go now for the BMW Team SRM crew. And at Sydney Motorsport Park in August. It's a track that really should suit them, but take nothing away from Tony Bates and Dan Gaunt, today's winners here at the Phillip Island 101, a dramatic action-packed race. They are the car that emerged best. Tony Bates, a very happy man indeed. Dan Gaunt, you never get a smile out of him, do you? Never get a smile out of Dan Gaunt. Great to see Max Twig and Tony D'Alberto up there as well, backing up the performance from the Bend.